Okay, the light is green. Oh my, let's start the show.
No, 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 no! Ah!
Hi, this is Dale Lear, designer of TRS-80 Color Baseball, and you're listening to CoCoTALK.
This is CoCoTALK, the nation's leading live talk show featuring the Tandy color computer, with your host, Mr. Gameplay Goodness himself, Stevie Stroud.
All right, well, we are here, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. We are here. We've actually got an audience. The show just started, and we already have an audience. Let's see who was dedicated enough to waste their day with us today. One of the earliest birds here was Sixie. Karen Anscombe was out there. Exile in Paradise out there. Rick U, Mark O, L. Curtis B, Kevin Holloway, Canadian Retro Things, Jim Rye, frequent participator in the Game On Challenge, is out there. Hello to all of you who are watching us right now across the multiverse. Welcome to CoCoTALK, episode 256. We have now rolled into the 9th bit of our dearly beloved 16-bit address space machine. And we got things to talk about today. We got results to review. We've got news to cover. Tom Eric Gunderson's out there. Hey, Tom. We got our panel. Let's say hi to our panel. Our resident Apple guy, Johnny on the spot with the live chat and the links and the quips. Mark Overholzer is here. Hello, Marco.
Hi there. Glad to be here.
And Mr. Dave just showed up in the live chat. Mr. Dave, hello to you. We have Alan, Exile and Paradise Murphy is with us. Hey, Alan.
Howdy, howdy.
Welcome to the program. We've got Rick Ulin from CoCo Connect with one N. How you doing, Rick U?
Greetings, folks. And it's warm. No, it's no, it's warm. No, it's snowing. Never mind.
All right. We have our backup streamer and engineer and well-dressed dude, Mark Bosley's in the house. Hey, Mark.
Hello.
I think we'll save some of the details when we get into updates, acquisitions, and stories to share, but I believe somebody has recently passed a thing or two. Maybe you can share some of those details with us, but he's in Arizona. He's got a garage. Rendezvous
Hello.
is with us.
We're alive, yeah.
We are live. We have
visiting hospitals.
just been waved at by B. Rye, FPV. Hello, B. Rye. And he's got a YouTube channel. He's got a Twitch channel. He plays games. He does retro stuff. He's from Canada. He's from Canada? Is that a word? He's from he's from Canada. Enough. He's from Canada, and he's into retro things. Ken Waters, how you doing, eh?
I'm doing good, eh?
Hey, good. It's a beauty. You take off,
Beauty.
eh? Beauty, eh?
Ball hockey.
Yeah, oh yeah. We have our foreign correspondent, news anchor, Nitrous 09 advocate, host of a games list website, got well manicured hair, you name it, he's got it. L. Curtis Boyle joins us today. How's it going, eh?
Welcome to the show, everyone.
Welcome. Speaking of Canadians, once again, the trifecta, the pinnacle of Canadian awesomeness, Canadian number 3, DeBruce Moore is with us today. Hey, DeBruce.
Oh, Canada. Peace, man.
Peace. Oh, Tim Hortons. All right, so DeBruce is here, and I think you might have something to talk about today with us, DeBruce. You might talk about the thing or the two. And he is waiting in line to get his URL changed. The maker of fine products involving toggle switches and whatnot. Jason, the Coco Man Reichert, is here. Hello.
Hello. Yes, live, late-breaking coverage of the drive-through oil change place somewhere in the Mountain State.
Okay, and you just answered a question from Grant Leedy in our live chat. Grant Leedy asks, where is Coco Man going this week? The answer is to get his URL changed. We've also just been greeted by David Craker, who says, hey. All right, so David Craker's out there. Last but certainly not least, The Thunder from Down Under, celebrating his 10th million copy sale of 0 Hour. Nicholas Morentes joins us today. Good day, Nick.
Oh, crikey. Is it that time of the week again?
Crikey. Welcome, Nick. Thank you for
Hey, everyone.
thanks for taking time away from counting your money from all of your game sales and
From waking up early in the morning, more like it.
Polishing the Ferraris.
and Nick's toughest part of his day now is going out to the mailbox and just grabbing just stacks of checks, right? So it's
You mean like the Czech cereal?
yes. Not to be confused with the Republic either. So we're going to do something different today, boys and girls, because we don't have a special guest. We don't have an interview. So rather than just racing right into the game on results, we thought we would switch it up a little bit. And we're going to go ahead and do our updates and acquisitions and stories to tell and feelings to share. What did you do this week? Anything of any type of significance, things you want to talk about, feelings you want to share, anything you want to get off your chest. Anything of that nature. So who would like to go first with their updates and acquisitions? Ron Delvaux? Ron Delvaux is waving his hand. Let me spotlight you, Ron. Ron, anything interesting happened to you this week?
Yeah, I had some kidney stone blasting going on for 2 weeks. It was just glorious. Much fun.
Oh,
and in between, I went to a hospital for pain because I could barely be even civil, if you can believe it or not. Anyway, I have an SDC that I've loaded. I have nearly 800 pictures from high color that I, transcribe all the time, and I'm getting a little notice that comes up. It says 400 file limit. So I thought I'd make you guys aware of it and see that do you have any ideas how to fix it? No, wait, I do. I thought to myself, why don't I just go through all my pictures and alphabetize them and put A, B, C, D, and then fill each one, and then there wouldn't be any kind of problem. Yeah. So that's what I guess I have to wind up doing, which will take quite a while. It's 400 files per folder.
Wow.
I have a folder called, pictures 1, pictures 2 type thing. So there's that. And then if you get a chance to go to the Facebook Color Computer Group page, I posted a video of 6800 machine that the guy got acquired from a friend. And it's real interesting to look at the inside of the machine and see that from 1990, I think it was 1975 it was made. And, it has the early 6800 processor in it, the precursor to ours. And just neat to see how in the old days, what they did. You didn't have a keyboard, you didn't have a mouse, you had to have a terminal. It just had a RS-232 out. And I thought that was interesting to look at.
Yeah.
Posted that. And then if you get a chance, Ron's Garage. That's it.
Ron's Garage on Facebook. Well, we're not going to let you off the hook that easy because you've had kidney stones. So what we want to do is we want to know some more of the painstaking details because
I think only Steve really wants to hear all that.
Well, it's so, and we were having this brief discussion right before we went live, but they basically say, and according to some people, women have confirmed this too, but supposedly a man having kidney stones is close to, if not greater than, the sensation of a woman giving birth, like childbirth, like just the amount of pain, right? And
that is correct. Yep.
And supposedly women who've had stones have said it is actually worse than childbirth. So,
yeah. Well, I had them up in the kidney, and they blasted them, and then I'm getting no results, and then it started to hurt. So I went to the hospital. They did scans. Then I went a second time because things did move, but it aggregated. For some reason, my stones are soft, so they went to the top of my bladder and hung out.
Hung out. They were just chilling, huh?
It was a killer. Yeah. So I had those blasted. So now chunks and pieces are coming out, and my wife works at ASU, and she does research on Alzheimer's. So she has access to a what do they call it?
The ultrasound?
Microscope.
Microscope.
they have cameras on it. So
Morphine.
I want to get her to take a picture of what it looks like, and I'll post it on my page.
All right.
You can see they're pretty spiky looking. I'm told.
Hmm.
I haven't really Googled them to see what they look like, but maybe it'll look like a coconut or something
Right.
to make us
Ron,
fit.
well, Ron, all you need to do is sit on a speaker and put Aerosmith on 11.
So yeah, my dad had that a lot when I was growing up. And
Yeah.
I remember one time we were kids, we were getting ready to take a trip to the whole family go to Disney World, and we had to cancel the family trip because he was just in so much pain. He had to go to the hospital, and he had suffered with that for a long time. And I guess the way they're dealing with it has gotten better over the years. But
Yeah.
like you mentioned, like to be able to kind of sonic blast it and break it up and make it smaller so it's easier to pass. Tim Franklin says Ron played asteroids all week.
Yep.
Usually you're shooting at the rocks, not shooting the rocks, but close enough, right? So, but yeah, so and I think one of the last times he had it, the doctor was like, well, why don't we just analyze what it's made out of, and let's see if there's something in your diet you could do, because usually it's like, a lot of calcium or red meat or things like that contribute to that buildup over time. So hopefully they'll get you a prescription on how to modify your intake to maybe minimize that.
Bruce here. I went through that a number of years ago. I had 2 attacks.
Oh my God.
And yeah, and pretty much what we nailed it down to was that I got on this kick of taking mega doses of vitamin C without taking mega doses of water to go with it.
Oh, so it's just calcifying
It collected, and it was Ron.
Amazing.
Anybody who's been through it, like, we should have, I don't know, medals or something.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, you're not going to die. Okay.
But it doesn't feel any better.
No, it feels like death is soon.
Yeah.
To be.
Well,
And if it's not going to come, from the pain, my wife's just I'm gonna wake up dead with a kitchen knife in my chest.
I don't know if you
She
experienced
said
this,
it.
Ron, but when I would have when they would start to move and I'd have the attack, I found it helpful to actually inflict pain on another part of my body to distract.
To distract you, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually pounded my thigh. Good thing I didn't have a knife because I
Well, I fell on one knee about just before this stuff happened, and hurt my knee, and that was a little painful. And then I thought to myself, why doesn't my knee hurt anymore?
Yeah, exactly.
It's gone. It's fine. And my back, that's just no problem at all. All I have is a huge, this pain radiating from the back quarter or down below.
Yeah.
Pain circuits were overloaded. They couldn't handle the input of the knee anymore.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, bless your heart, Ron. We're glad you're doing okay. It's always nice.
How is that Terry Steggy doing?
Yeah, it was Terry Steggy. Bless his heart, right? The Taylor and Amy show have just joined us saying, good afternoon, gentlemen. Well, we'll have to do. There are no gentlemen here, but thank you.
I would like to say one last thing.
Sure, Ron.
Could we make sure we have potty breaks on a regular interval today?
Listen, Ron, Ron, just so you know, you've never needed to have a hall pass or ask for permission. You're always free to get up and go when you have to.
Okay.
But we will try to do that a little more frequently.
I'm just thinking of everybody.
For you and your stones. All right. And God bless you, Ron. We're glad you're here. You're such a trooper. I love that you're putting in Facebook, what you're going through, but you're just on the other side of that. There's the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, So you are a trooper. You're a trooper. You're a trooper. And look who we have. Is that Jacob?
Yeah.
Dude, what happened to that 10-year-old kid I remember from a couple years ago?
I don't know. Time.
How old are you now?
I'm 14.
14. You are starting to look like your dad a little bit there too. I'm not sure that's a good thing, but hey, good to see you, Jacob. And all right, so that was Ron Delvaux. Thank you, Ron, for your update. And always, no matter what is going on, you've always got something. You've got some cheer and joy to spread. You are a gift, Ron. And
even though your acquisition was something you didn't want.
Exquisition.
So, Ron, thank you. You're a treasure. You're a national treasure. Who else? We're going to hear from the Moores, the Bruce and the Jacob Moores. But anybody else have an acquisition? I think Alan Murphy. Did you have something you wanted to talk about? Let me spotlight you. Let's bring in the spotlight.
Ugh, how horrible. Yeah, acquisition. Got some 0 hour.
All right, another check in the mailbox. Another shrimp on the Barbie for old man.
Yeah, basically means I've blown up the Earth like 1,000,000 times. So I heard there's another ending to this game, but I don't believe it.
Have you written a review for it in Discord by any chance?
I did, and on the CoCo Show's Discord.
Ah.
Yeah, that's their game reviews for this next, what is it, the 23rd? Whatever the Saturday is coming up in April. That's their game to review on the CoCo Show.
Exactly. So, yeah, reviews have been posted.
Now, was this what you call the hard pass, like you recommended for a few other games, or no? Was this a must play?
This was.
I forgot what you called them.
That was my other update. I did some other game reviews in the past week that didn't seem to go over so well with the authors or the audience. So, I posted those on Discord too for anybody who wanted to see that, and other places just in case. So, what else? Oh, I also posted some blog updates on the CoCo Discord about some experiments I did with MGE files and commenting some anim tool and some Python code that I wrote to show MGEs on Linux and some other stuff.
Can you translate that to English for us? What is an MGE?
You can look at pictures on Linux made on CoCos.
Oh.
Stuff.
Oh,
Okay.
so MGE being the Color Max 3 file format.
Ah. Oh, so it's a utility to take a CoCo image file and view it in Linux.
Yes.
Oh, well, that's cool. Very cool. All right.
So, yeah, just a few updates.
All right. Well, thank you for doing that. And it sounds like, Jason, is that you?
It is. I think I may have a new record here with the newest and most recent acquisition.
Okay, what's
on
that?
This program. I have a new oil filter and oil.
They did put the oil in.
He's on the road.
Yeah, they got
Well, you weren't supposed to use it all in your hair, Jason.
Oh yeah. Well, but seriously, as far as it's looking very promising that I'm going to be able to start resuming normal shipments to Australia here within the next few weeks from CoComan.biz. So, like I had said before on the program, there was a service stoppage from the U.S. Postal Service delivering to Australia, and all the other options were quite costly. Well, I found something that cost just about the same, and seems to be working so far. I'm waiting to hear. We'll make sure that package gets to Nick Marentes, and then we can open it up to everybody. And because it's kind of ironic that I have Australian-themed products I haven't been able to ship to Australia for a while in September.
Woohoo!
They're passing through the customs and the authenticity department to make sure they are genuine and not fake Australian products. So, crikey. Cool. Very cool. Australia will rejoice when CoCoMan products can cross over onto their sacred ground. Very cool stuff. Who else got something they want to share? Update, acquisition. Anyone?
Well, I've got a little bit of a reacquisition here.
Reacquisition. Let me spotlight Rick Euland, everybody.
So for the longest time, I've been using cam videos and everything else because I couldn't get my video capture card to work with CoCo. I'm using a little Recordtron.
Did you not have the right Nitrous 9 driver to have that capture card work on the CoCo?
Well, I have a Sun LCD that will sync to anything, and I have this little Recordtron that makes a VGA signal out of the CoCo, and those two work together, but I could never capture it. Well, I bought a new laptop, and the new laptop, same old card, seems to work just fine. And in fact, not only does it work just fine, let me get into some a real application here. I should have started this playing.
Oh, Nitrous 9. Ooh, look at that.
The show just got better.
That's a beauty, eh? Oh,
we can bop right into it and read everything.
And you're having, listen, well, you know what? I don't know, you must have one of those random switcheroo cables that has clear 80 columns, because what the word on the street is, it's very blurry, the 80 column. I'm just messing with you, Jason. But yeah, no, you can read the...
This is RGB into a Recatron, converting that to VGA and into a VGA capture card, which managed to handle it just fine.
All right, that looks good. So this is not going through the switcheroo, but CoCo RGB out is pretty damn clear.
And we can, I actually went on to fire up, I guess it doesn't mean anything, but I went on and fired up my little network thing. So, my face came on. How did that happen? I don't understand OBS just yet, but that's how that happened.
That's in one of your scenes, apparently.
So, in any case,
Yep.
so you have multiple scenes set up now in OBS where you can switch stuff around, and you can get you just switch back to you. Look at you.
Yeah, now it's me again.
Yeah.
So now, a nice little transition.
Back to the other one.
Yeah.
Let's get back to there we go. And my head's gone.
That's
what a deal.
CoCo.io homepage. So this is happening over the network right now. 400 bad requests.
When I recorded it, and then what happened?
CoCo.io homepage. Howdy. If you're reading this page, you've probably got some sort of web browser running on your CoCo. What?
So it actually was live at the time.
Yeah. And you got bold fonts, and you got, look at that. You got a CoCo web browser on your CoCo. Now, this inverted text is a little bit blurry. So coming through the capture. But the
highlighted text bottom's nice.
Yeah, but like the black on green's a little bit kind of lost.
Yeah, that's not a color combo I would pick.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, this is, it's, prototype crap. I haven't really tried to even make it look nice. But anyway, I now have a way to actually show my CoCo stuff. Now I'm going to have to play games and stuff because I don't have any excuses anymore.
All right. There you go.
You have to join in the live stream of the gaming.
Exactly. So, that's the idea, is I should play with my CoCo more and work on it less. So, that's where I'm headed.
Cool. All right. Getting spiffy there. Getting spiffy with the captures. I got just a real quick show off. So I will spotlight here real quick. And I need to tweak my camera. But what I have behind me here, which you can't see just yet, but I'm going to zoom in on it. And this is one of the nice features of the new camera that I got. But I'm going to zoom in. I'm zooming. It's kind of weird how the light... Here we go. Can you see that?
It's the bald spot throwing it off there.
Yeah. So this is Treasure Island Defense from Sheldon McDonald on a cartridge with the Game Master cartridge with the 3-voice music. It's very cool chiptunes soundtrack. But this is the cartridge running on a real CoCo 3. I've had the cartridge for a while, but until recently, all my hardware was boxed up somewhere in the garage. So I now have this to play with, and I'm going to play with that. And I have not played with it yet. I just fired it up today, right before the show. But I think it looks cool, and I love that my camera can like zoom in on this, and it looks that clear, And this game plays on the CoCo 3 and on the CoCo VGA with the same 16-color graphics mode, and because the sound chip is on the cartridge, the music's built in, and he has different versions. One will take advantage of the PSG, programmable sound generator, which you need to have a separate cartridge for, and a multi-pack. This one is kind of a self-contained cartridge, so Bob's your uncle. But I am looking forward to playing with that, so I got it hooked up. So that's my latest thing, is got something I acquired in the past I can now actually play with. So there we go. And then if nobody else has anything, maybe we can go ahead and segue over to DeBruce. Did anybody else have an update or an acquisition to share or to discuss? All right, well then what we'll do real quick, because we aired this probably last week. I don't know if we aired it the week before or not, but this is a teaser clip from DeBruce Moore about something that he's working on that we may or may not find out about at CoCo Fest coming up. So why don't we just roll that clip, and then we can talk about it after that. So here we go. We're going to roll clip.
For many a year, peace has reigned throughout the realm. In the forest, nothing but ruins of an ancient fortress remain to fuel the myth of the evil wizard. Tales of your ancestors' quest are met with laughter. Mockery follows your warnings. But you know what awaits.
Are you ready?
I literally jumped out of my seat when that tree came at me. I'm like, whoa, wow, that was, wow.
That was the point. I was wondering how many people jumped.
That was a jump scare. That's what the kids call a jump scare right there.
Bruce, are you going to make an alternate one where you spell the word color right?
Are you kidding? I thought about that when I put it on there, and I thought, what kind of ribbing am I going to get? So it cuts both ways. I get the Canadians are going to hate me if I put it.
I'd almost say it cuts like a knife. But it feels so nice. But yeah.
That's Canadian.
I'm going to take a wild guess and say this is, I don't know if we want to call it a sequel, but potentially a spiritual successor to the hit game Forest of Doom.
What gave it away?
I don't know. I'm just reaching here.
I don't know. I can relate to the mockery part with my mug, which I'm on the road, so I don't have right now.
I'm also going to reach here a little bit. Now, the Forest of Doom, I believe we're now confining ourselves to maybe, a couple of square acres, but the Realm of Doom is possibly a larger world that we'll be dealing with?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I think they bulldozed the Forest of Doom and they put in a shopping center.
Put up a parking lot.
No. No, I'm looking forward to revealing a playable demo for CoCo Fest, which is in what, like 6 weeks?
6 weeks, eh?
Yep.
6 weeks, and so I suppose I gotta stop pushing new features into it and actually make sure everything runs.
That's no fun.
But like I've done before my other projects, I tend to end up doing something. I don't know if odd's quite the right word. Innovative, maybe.
Innovative.
Something a little different.
Yeah, different.
Yeah, and
How about automated?
with Forest of Doom, I actually made a book. It was the I don't know, the adventure guide or whatever, and you would buy the book, and you would download the code from the book to play the game. So that was different, and this is going to be different again. Oh, excuse me. This again has got another something quite different, and of course I'm not going to tell you what it is now. You're going to have to find out at the fest, but it's. I think it's going to be. Well, it's yeah. You know what? I'm scared to say.
Okay, don't say anything then. Just keep us in the suspense.
I'm scared to let it get away on me.
Okay,
Let's
don't.
just say this has not been done. This has not been done on the CoCo before.
Okay.
Okay. It has not been done, and so it's going to be a very interesting. I think it's going to be a very interesting reveal, and it could have repercussions on the whole gaming side of the CoCo potentially for everybody.
Well, don't undersell yourself.
Yeah, not at all. Yeah, keep it humble.
Well, we'll see.
Hashtag.
Can I ask?
I'm careful.
Can I ask a technical question?
I'm sure.
The original Forest of Doom, I think, was 32K disk basic required. Is that the same for this one, or does this need a bit more beefier machine?
No, this needs more, but it's still CoCo 2 64K.
Okay, so no CoCo 3 required. You're still
mode.
All RAM mode.
Yeah. So so there's a whole lot of shaking going on there. CoCo 2 and CoCo 3, because I'm also using BASIC in it, but I'm carefully overwriting parts of the operating system. It's been quite a juggling act, but it's working, and it's allowing me that and partnering up with a couple other CoCo people. Like, I'm going to be presenting this as a speaker at the fest, and part of the point of my presentation is like, well, while you can CoCo by yourself, isn't it way more fun to do it in community, right?
Yeah.
And so to that end, this thing that I'm bringing out here is while it's my vision, it really is relied on the help of a number of people to make it come along. And I'd much rather. That's why I'm back in the CoCo thing altogether, is because of the community. That's
community collaboration.
Yeah, the collaboration, the community. And why would I do the most fun I've ever had is when I'm doing the CoCo stuff with other people. And so that's exactly what I'm doing with this new game. And I'm just looking forward to seeing what you guys think about it and enjoying it and having fun with it. And yeah, I don't want to say any more.
I don't know. I'm hearing there's some certain keywords that are going off here. Enjoyment, fun, community. I don't know. This kind of rubs me the wrong way here. I'm not feeling that whole vibe.
What? Obviously, you must be writing at Nitrous 9, right? I mean, with those kind of keywords going on.
I thought about it, but
we'll get you there eventually.
I think I want to make a prediction. Now last time it was a book and a link. I think this time it's maybe you're going to modernize it. Instead of a physical book, it's going to be an e-book and an audio book. You download the link for the program from.
Interesting idea, but no.
You could have just left him hanging. When you say no, we can now scratch things off the list that it isn't. If you don't say anything, plausible deniability, we can just keep guessing forever. So
you can, but Jacob and I are driving out. Jacob's got a significant contribution to this project besides just being a tester. And we're bringing hardware down this time because
Ooh.
And
Nice.
we're gonna have a bunch of stuff plugged in, and it's gonna be interesting. And I don't know if you can see this guy already.
Yeah,
You've seen my tree
the
before,
evil
right?
forest tree 3D printed. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
I don't
lost.
know.
It's
Put it
lost
in
in
front
your
of
virtual background now, but yeah.
Yeah.
Put it in front of your belly.
In your front of your face,
There you
maybe. Nah, we're getting lost in the virtual background.
Belly.
It's too black.
Yeah.
Anyway, he's going to come along. I don't know. Maybe we'll end up having a contest, and maybe someone will actually be able to win one of these guys. I don't know.
Hey, Bruce, your boy is about the age that a lot of us were first starting out on color computer. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's he'll be turning 15 just as we leave CoCo Fest.
Wow.
Like the day after.
We need to celebrate.
Yeah. So
There's a strip club nearby, right?
Well, there's going to be cookies there, probably, right?
It's too bad he wouldn't have his learner's license, but then he can drive all the way back for you.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Well, maybe next
Designated
year.
driver.
We'll see.
Next year you can just bring a case of Molson with you as you're coming down, right? So, beauty, eh?
Anyway, yeah, really looking forward to the fest. I mean, I missed it the last couple of years. It's only 6 weeks away. Yeah, I'm curious. How many folks here are confirmed on the panel who are confirmed to be coming this year?
And doing a presentation as well with Ken.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Good.
Me.
I'm not confirmed yet because I haven't booked travel arrangements yet, but I plan to. It's just going to be. I'm going to be late in getting everything going. But yeah, I plan on being there. Yeah. Oh yeah.
All right. That's good. Thanks.
Yeah. Ron Delvaux's holding up a Dungeons of Daggerath cartridge.
Yeah, look at the price on it.
$4?
Can you see it? Yep.
$4.95.
Yeah, it was on a clearance rack, evidently, at one time. $4.95. What can you get it for currently online? What do you think?
$30.
$25, $30.
On eBay, pick
Yeah.
a number. Some fool will buy it.
Yeah.
Unopened.
It's
Yeah.
not crunched or anything. It's nice and square.
No.
And
Yeah.
Still
Yeah.
sealed by the looks of
Actually
it too. It's not even got the plastic.
Right.
for
Still
it.
got that new cartridge
Actually,
smell once you crack it open, right?
It has tape on the back because the thing they used to hang it on the wall with evidently came off.
right.
Cool. All right. Well, does that conclude the updates and acquisitions portion of the show?
I believe so.
I believe so. Okay, well, at least that way we were able to just talk a little bit before we rolled right into Game On Results. It's a great segment, but, you know, you got to build up to that, right? So we are now at a crescendo, and we are ready for the great opus that is the Game On Results with Canadian Retro Things. So let's go ahead and switch gears there. We're going to do a best of CoCo thoughts from the archive, and then we'll see how we did this week. Here we go, boys and girls. And thank you to Bruce for being here, and I can't wait to see this current production.
Is there actually a best of?
Oh, they're all hits. So yes, man.
And now, CoCo Thoughts by Samuel Gimes. Every time an MC-10 is lost, a door closes.
All right, everybody, get ready for Game On Results with Canadian Retro Things, Ken Waters. How do we do this week, Ken?
Welcome to the CoCoTALK Game On Challenge of the Week results. This week we did things a little bit differently for the game Mire. We have two separate lists. The first one is for the people that completed the game, of which there were 4. We had Sabhead with 690, Canadian Retro Things 1120, Buck Owens 1450, and the highest score for the completed games was Eric Omont with 2480.
Nice.
And now it's time to look at everybody's general scores. We had a total of 10 participants this week. We had David Craker with 30, Mr. Dave 6309 370, Rich N 440, Sabhead 690, Canadian Retro Things 1120, Gary M 1140, Buck Owens 1450, Jim Rye 1970, Eric Omont 2480, and the highest score in the general scores category was Sloopy Malibu with 4,380. Thanks to everybody that played this week. We'll see you next week.
Wow, what were the percentage signs next to
that? That was the percentage of the game that you completed.
So people with low percentages had higher scores. So I guess you can just farm points out of the game?
Yeah, you could just farm points and not try to complete the quest, which was a little weird.
Okay.
We kind of figured it out on the live show that, it was, you're either doing 2 things in the game. You're trying to complete it or you're trying to get points.
Okay.
So that's why I did the 2 lists.
Neat.
In retrospect, I think maybe I should have weighted the scores by how much of the game you completed.
Okay. Well, it's okay.
One of the weird things about it was you never got any bonus for actually completing the game. As a matter of fact, Sabhead, for some reason it said 99%, but he actually completed the game. Did it with like 690 points, which was one of the lower scores.
Wow. So it's almost like a speed run where you just kind of got in and got out, right? So
yeah.
How do you win the game? What do you got to do?
You got to collect all the gems, take them, drop them into the volcano, and then get to another part of the level or the screen and walk into a big skull of a wolf's head.
Okay.
Of which I died just before I entered it.
Collect gems, throw gems in volcano. Enter giant wolf's head.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And find water.
Find
water. Find water while you're doing it. So, let's see. What am I looking for here? I actually have something to share here.
You should be able to, but I'll go ahead and stop just to be.
No, I'm on it. I just can't see. The stuff I wanted to share seems to have disappeared from my desktop. Weird. There it is.
Have you tried switching it on and off again?
I think I might. Oh, there we go. I didn't scroll. So if you downloaded the big pack from the Dragon Archive, you would have gotten the instructions for this game, which made the game a little bit easier.
Okay.
So this is so you actually know what you were doing. And the most important thing for actually completing the game was it also came with a map. So you could actually see where everything was. The volcano you had to drop things into, the water you needed to survive, the keys, the gem bags, all of that. So, yeah, that's all included in the big pack if you download it from the World of Dragon.
Is that what they call number 3 is inside the volcano?
Number 3 inside. Yeah, so you go to this area here, the number 2.
Uh-huh.
And then you have to throw a rope down into the volcano. Then you have to go down it and avoid all the bats or kill them. Then when you get to the bottom, you drop it into the lava. Don't know why you couldn't just throw it over the side.
Okay, and then box number 4, the wolf sculpture. That's where you go in the game.
That's where you have to go after you've dropped all 3 gems into the volcano. So
interesting. Well, that map makes it kind of easy to.
Yeah, it actually is 100 times easier if you use the map
instead of running around aimlessly.
Buck Owens did not know that there was a map available, so he actually mapped out the whole thing and posted it on the Discord. So
okay,
of where everything was. And
did anybody play it with the MSX2 16 color mode or?
No, well, at least I didn't see anybody playing it.
Okay, because you can emulate that in MAME, and it's already built into the CoCo Pi, that machine configuration.
But you can make a really nice CoCo palette color by changing it to green.
Yeah.
Then you really feel like you're playing on a CoCo.
Yeah, right?
Now, this had the newer engine that Pear was quite impressed with. So what did you think of that, Ken? Or anybody else on the panel that played it?
I liked it. It was a good 3D effect, being able to walk behind the stones and stuff. And, good music in this game. Obviously, there's no reviews in the old stuff because it was only made a couple of years ago. So,
I got a question. Did anybody play the first version? And was it as interesting, or was it different? Or
I have not tried the first version yet. I saw it there, but I just didn't have time.
What's the difference between the first version of this? Just the
no idea.
The multi-layer effect or something, or?
Well, there's 2 of them. There's Mire and then there's Mire 2 in the download. So this is Mire 2.
Oh, okay. So not a different version of this game, but the prequel to this game or a predecessor to this game. Okay, gotcha.
I think so. I think it's smaller, and I don't know.
It wouldn't have some of the special effects that are in here.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Like from what I remember Parrot saying in his post there, basically this has like a more advanced sound generation. It has layered tiles where you can go behind tiles as well as in front, or just hitting them, etc. So there's a few graphical effects added, sound effects are added.
That's a neat looking door that you have to open.
Mm-hmm.
Do you guys think that adding color to a game makes it more exciting, or is this kind of boring because of one color, or once you get into it you don't notice, or what?
I
don't think it's necessary. It's an enhancement.
It's an enhancement, but I'm more about the gameplay and stuff because for the first many years of using a computer, I had a green screen on an Apple II, so I never had any color on any.
And I had a black and white TV at the very beginning of my CoCo, so that's all I had too.
So, given the choice, give me the resolution.
Yeah, and also you can get a nicer resolution, definitely, in the monochrome.
Right.
I mean, some of the best classic CoCo games like Dungeons and Dragons are designed for mono too. So I think it depends on the game. If you make a good game, it doesn't matter if it's in color, black and white. if you have a good game that's in black and white or color will enhance it, I think. And the thing is with the AGD engine, the original Spectrum graphics are monochrome, and then they have these little 8x8 pixel tiles that you can define a foreground background color, so you can change it in squares. That's why you get all that color clash type thing on the original Spectrum.
I wonder what 0 Hour looked like in black and white.
Well, if you've seen the death screen on it, it's all red, so that's kind of gives you a simulation.
Right.
And there are a lot of games out there that spent way too much time on the graphics and have really beautiful graphics.
Yeah, that's
the game sucked. Gameplay.
I mean, that's a really good question, Ron, and I get everybody will weigh in on their opinions, and I think some of you have answered things that I would probably echo. I think gameplay, number one, a good game is fun to play, even if it has simplistic graphics. Like there's some really cool stuff that Jim Gary does on the MC10 and semi-graphics and low res, right? So I think the gameplay and the game design are the most important elements. At that point, if the graphics look realistic or look cool or stylized, that's a bonus. And depending on the style, sometimes monochrome serves the game quite well. I think this game looks really good in just black and white. Would it look better in color? And at that point, I would say, well, it depends on what color they use. Because let's look at some of the CoCo P Mode 3 screens with like the Puyan colors. Those have colors, but those colors in some cases make it worse, depending on your preference, So I think the answer to that question is going to be in the eye of the beholder. But for me, a game is all about how fun is it to play. The gameplay, the game mechanics, the replay value, the risk-reward factor. Visuals, then there's many layers to the visuals. Is it good graphics in general? Does it have good color? Are there... when I was a kid, the trifecta of a game would be, okay, it's P Mode 4, it's got the artifact colors, it's a good playing, good paced arcade game, and it had some 4-voice music. That was like everything you wanted in a good CoCo game. It had the music, the sound, the graphics, the sound effects, the colors. That was like, those were all the boxes you'd want to check off on a AAA title for
What's that song? I Want It All.
Yeah.
Well, there's an interesting wrinkle to this, because I can remember back in the day, you were using the screen as the data array, so it wasn't just what you wanted to see, it's how you needed to store your hit collision data and so forth that influenced what the display looked like, because they were one and the same. There wasn't a separate array where you stored the position of things. You looked at the screen, and if it was green, you hit somebody.
Right.
Anyone do that, or is that just me?
Nope.
Oh yeah, just checking for a pixel state, for collision detection. Right? Did I hit a color?
I believe Nick Moretti actually still uses that technique, and even in his current games, don't you, Nick?
What was that? I was sleeping.
Well, yeah, we were talking about well-designed games, nothing you know about, right? So
that's why you nodded off. We're talking about doing collision detection using the colors of pixels rather than, say, a state array or something.
Oh, yeah, I do in some instances, yeah.
Nick, here's a good question, Nick. Would you do a black and white, similar to this style?
It would depend on the game. Yeah, it depends. Like you say, it depends on the game. If it's a game that really relies on the gameplay more than anything, I'd consider that. But
you kind of have done in the Model 1 games that you've done.
Right, true.
Yeah, they were all.
Yeah, but in the Color Computer 3, you have the Color Computer.
Yeah, well, that's right. I don't believe in the false advertising. Here, Color Computer in black and white.
Although these games were not originally designed on the Color Computer. They're originally Specky games.
Which had actually more colors.
Is that the Wolf's Head thing right there?
Oh, that's a cool graphic.
Yeah, that's the Wolf's Head.
Okay.
There's some definitely good detailed graphics in this game. I have to say it's one of the better
well designed.
Yeah, this one's a good one in black and white or black and green.
Right. And
has anybody talked to Spectrum people that have seen us emulate their stuff, and what do they think?
I haven't, though. A lot of people in the Amigos Discord, are Spectrum users because they're from the UK, and that was one of the most popular machines there. And a couple of Mad Dragons back in the day.
I guess I could I do know a couple of people over in Europe that are also Dragon or CoCo users that are chiefly Spectrum users. I should get them to try these things and see what they think.
That would be cool to get feedback.
That's the other thing too. Like with the Dragon, because it was PAL in the UK, you only had your choice of black and white near, or even in Australia for that matter. You didn't have color artifact colors and stuff, so you were kind of limited to what games you want to put in color. They'd have to be that green, blue, red, yellow, or cyan, magenta, buff, quote unquote, orange. If you want to color, otherwise you had to use green and black or black and white.
We did have color in the black and white as well, but it was ugly strips of purple and green.
That's why I didn't count that.
Yeah. That's where you turn the color down on the color TV.
Yep.
Well, Well, I'm glad we finally got around to playing one, because I know we've been saying, hey, we should really play an AGD game on the challenge, and this is like a top tier AGD game, so why not kick off that platform with a good one?
I wonder how this would look. I have a old IBM monochrome VGA monitor, and I have the thing that I bought. What was it called? The Scooby-Doo. What is it? Anyway, I wonder how it would look. All grayscale.
Hook it up and find out.
I think it would look pretty good.
Yeah.
The graphics might be a little sharper than running it through.
It's real easy to put a monochrome composite monitor on a CoCo 3. Just put it on that little RCA jack in the back of a CoCo 3. In fact, I remember there was a term for that. They actually call it the MoCo, the monochrome CoCo, right? Because they thought that was better for 80 columns than Nitrous 9 and stuff. Or back then it was just OS 9, but yeah. Yeah, cool.
And there's the end screen, when you beat it.
Okay, congratulations. The curse has been vanquished. I can't tell.
Vanquished.
Meyermare is
Yeah,
safe.
it's vanished.
Quest completed. Okay, 100%. Oh, so there you see your percentage. So somebody completed it, but it didn't say 100%. It just said 99%.
Yeah, for some reason, Sab had got 99%. He figures he maybe didn't pick something up or something because he did the speed run on it.
And then
do you have any playing tips and stuff? Like, I didn't get a chance to play.
Obviously, if you want to get points, you find a nice little spot to hide in, and then you can just sit there and just throw swords, or as Sloopy called them, plungers at the bad guys and keep killing them. Other than that, definitely use the map if you want to complete the game. It makes it 100 times easier.
Yeah, you've been going through that with Gates of Delirium.
Where did that nice full color map come from? Was that also in the zip file from the archive?
Yes.
Okay.
It was. It's included in the big in the AGD docs file. There's a bunch of instruction books and stuff in there for a bunch of the games. So if you want to really get into playing a few of these, I would have that file downloaded so that you can refer to it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because some of the games are a little confusing.
Yeah. Was this a game that supported both keyboard and joystick?
Yes.
How was the play between using both methods?
I like the keyboard better myself, because you could do double key presses to go diagonally. Which...
Oh, you mean hold down two keys at once, like the down and right key? Okay.
Yeah.
You couldn't do that in joystick? You could only
do that in the joystick, but I don't know. I was just having problems with the joystick. I don't know if it was my joystick or the game, but I couldn't seem to maneuver my guy near as well as I could with the keyboard. So, plus you can redefine the keys to exactly what you want on the keyboard. So I love it when a game allows you to do that.
Because the reason I was asking is I remember there was a post from the very first version of it he uploaded. Apparently the joystick actually wasn't working correctly. So
right. You could only hit the fire button and go to the left. That was the only thing you could do with the joystick. But he did repair that. Game? It'll work on any CoCo.
Oh,
actually, Per was saying that because I did talk to him about the RGB, the download, the boot file wasn't working on the CoCo 3, and he told me that he hadn't actually thought that people with CoCo 3s would even want to play these, so he never really tested it. So because when he made it in CoCo 2 mode, so the RGB command was tokenized or whatever.
Right. Yeah, it was just raw text.
Yeah.
Which is a syntax error because it wouldn't try to.
The CoCo 3, it wouldn't run it. It just kept giving an error. So.
But it would be a syntax error on a CoCo 2, wouldn't it too? Because RGB is not.
Well, no, there was a line that actually skipped that line if you're.
Okay, I see. So it did a peak to skip it, and then when it ran it because it wasn't tokenized, that's why it got the RGB.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, it's all making sense now. All right.
And that was a change Para did in his development tool system chain, because he actually had it working so it would code properly. Yeah. Then at some point he changed it to
about
generate
the first half of the
2.
games that he released worked fine, and then the second half that you started getting the error.
Yeah. Now, there's been a question from David Kraker here about running it on a Super Sprite FM Plus board. Now, I'm trying to remember, does Mire actually have a Super Sprite version?
I think it does. There's a 16 color version, so it would look better. Colored background, different colored characters,
possibly music,
and sound effects. So yeah.
I'm going to quickly go online and see if I can find that.
So is it pretty tough looking on a CoCo 2 on a TV 3 and 4? I mean, is it hard to look at?
No, I didn't find it hard to look at.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, that's a mode that it's using was what the CoCo 1 and 2 was designed for on a TV, to look as clear as possible without color. So
I only thought that maybe you'd be getting a lot of interference and stuff,
Nope.
you'll probably get a bit of fringing, like a little bit of orange
Yeah.
and blue in the edges of things, but there's a lot of solid white, solid black shapes, so it shouldn't be too bad. You might get a little bit of blue and red here and there, but
Mr. Dave is asking, has anyone seen Huggy McFlattery?
nope. Unless I've covered it on the show and just can't remember because there's
No.
300 games to go through. So.
Yeah, right.
Oh, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this one isn't for the FM board. I thought it was, but I don't see it in.
Yeah, because I think there's only about a dozen out of the 300 plus games that have been
I
converted
don't even
over.
think there's that many.
This is probably a good game for Patrick's board that you can switch on the back to a CoCo 2 layout.
Oh, for the keyboard? Yeah, the arrow keys?
Yeah. How's that, Patrick?
Shameful product placement right there, right?
Yeah, works good.
Yeah.
Well, actually this game works really well with having the cluster of the arrow keys for being able to go diagonally and being able to fire and stuff with the other hand.
The other nice thing about AGD games, they usually let you redefine the key. So if you prefer a CoCo 1, 2 with the up and down arrows on the left, left arrows on the right-hand side, which is what I grew up and am much more used to, even for diagonals, that I would probably redefine the keys to be, I don't know, QA and left, right or something.
Yeah, how many times do you find yourself trying to push a key because you're on a different machine and you're thinking, what am I doing? What am I doing? I'm on a 3. I'm on a 3, not a 2.
Well, I remember when the CoCo 3 first came out, where the clear key was, everybody hit that and would immediately screw up the line you were typing in BASIC and clear the screen. There was actually patches released on CompuServe to redefine the clear key to be whatever the key was that was supposed to be there on the CoCo 1, 2 level, because so many people were hitting it. They basically disabled the clear key to change it to whatever the key on the CoCo 1, 2 key. I can't remember which one it was off the top of my head, but the light was. So yeah, some people did take well used to, and I know some games that were defined to have the arrows on the sides, like Sea Dragon, Avenger, Phantom Slayer, and a few others. I can't play them as well on a CoCo 3 keyboard because it's too much to do. Whole cramp and
but you could with Patrick's board.
Yeah,
there you go.
That's why I'm seriously considering buying one of those if he has them in stock at the show.
Coming to a CoCo Fest near you. Hopefully the CoCo 2 version will be around by then too.
Okay, do we want to talk about what? Did you find anything, Ken, that you were looking for?
No, I was completely mistaken. This is not one of the games that is works on the Super Sprite FM board.
Okay.
The original game was for the Spectrum, not for the MSX.
Right.
Oh, well, that's why it won't work on the
well,
FM.
no, but he has converted some of the games.
They're converting a lot. Yeah.
So, Ken, would there be reviews on the Spectrum people's boards of this game?
Well, this is a fairly. I mean, it was only made in 2017, so.
Oh.
Yeah.
It's made with the AGD engine, which is Adventure Game Design, which is an engine that makes it really easy to design adventure games on the Spectrum. As a matter of fact, if you download the pack, there's actually a lot of games in there that are school projects. So to say, like class XX, whoever's class year-end project, and it's a game that they've made like a year or two ago.
Right. So yeah, because this is like a tool for people to make their own games. There's a lot of new games coming out for the Spectrum and now for the CoCo because this tool exists now. So which is kind of cool. So there's a lot of new retro games that work on both the Spectrum and the CoCo because we've got the interpreter, thanks to Parrot.
And there has been interpreters like this on the CoCo way back in the day. Like Game Writer came out in '82 or '83, I think, and there was one or two others back then. But they were much more limited than the current AGD engine is capable of doing. So you could make a few little multi-screen games. I know Nick and I have actually looked at a few that came with Game Writer, but they're pretty simple compared to the AGD ones.
So how do we consider these games? The ADG or whatever they're called
AGD.
games are they they're not retro, but because they're new for us, but they're retro on theirs.
Well, they're homebrew games. They're
still making them brand new
homebrews.
on the Spectrum too. So
Yeah.
I mean, you can get a game that was made in
Well,
2021.
so
on this.
you could ask the same question about one of Nick Marenti's games, like 0 Hour. What would you call that? It's a new game for a vintage system. So is there a name for that? Is it still a retro game because it runs on retro? I guess
What do you think?
It's retro
Nick?
adjacent.
Tell us what you think, Nick.
Oh, I'm not sure actually. Yeah, is it homebrew? I mean, what does homebrew really mean?
That's when you make
guess
your own
made
beer.
without a studio.
That's when you make
It
your
was
own beer
home-
at home, right?
It was homebrew when you got your 4K machine in 1980.
Well,
I think a
guess it means
homebrew has to be made by a person, marketed by that person, sold by that person, or given away by that person. If you make it and have like some company selling it, it's not homebrew anymore. It's a commercial game.
That's what
Yeah, I
Nick's
guess
doing.
so. So my stuff is homebrew, but it's also commercial, you could say.
Well, it's commercial
Yeah, because
quality.
you're getting the
Oh,
disc
all right.
cases and the jewel cases and stuff are manufactured on your behalf by another company. So yeah.
Yeah.
That's just a merch
I think this is a lot of semantics and tomato.
Yeah, it's exactly.
To me, a retro game is one of two things. It's running on real old hardware, or it could be a game written on a new system that looks and feels and plays like an old game for old hardware. So I think retro is kind of the soul of the game, regardless if it's running on new hardware or old hardware. It kind of has that 2D, blocky, pixely kind of look and feel. And to me, that's
Could you consider Minecraft like retro because it's kind of like primitive looking graphics, even though it's on a 3D plane?
Yeah, but not like 8-bit retro. It's more like 16-bit retro. So this is like an 8-bit retro type game, but it's still being written on the old, for the old processor to run on old hardware. So to me, that makes it a retro game because it's running on retro hardware.
Yeah. My definition for me personally is that retro is, as you said, running on old hardware. It has to run on the old hardware. And you have retro themed, I guess, or something like that would be making a modern game on a modern system, but kind of going old style.
Right.
I call it retro theme, not a
Okay.
retro game per se, myself personally. But
Is that where emulators come in?
No, because an emulator is still
Not
running the old. An
necessarily.
emulator is just running old hardware in software.
But it's on the latest machine you can buy.
But it still has to represent the original hardware.
Well, you could still write for a modern computer, but if it's a style of game looks very retro, I would call that a retro game because it's got that. It's like someone buying retro clothing. It's a new set of clothing that you buy or newly manufactured, but it's styled as if it was made back in whenever.
Right.
that's why I call that retro style. I don't call that retro.
Right.
That could be
So again, it's
but
kind of
that's-
it's in the eye of the beholder, I think.
Yeah,
So-
exactly.
Yeah. It's
That could
just
be
like,
a whole-
It's just like the debate of what is retro. Like how many years ago is retro, which is different for everybody. Because it's kind of funny. My 13-year-old niece, they're talking about being all retro and going back to doing the things they did when they were 9. That's 4 years ago.
It'd be a whole new style of thing, though. A game written for strictly as CoCo code, but running as fast as you could run a CoCo emulator on a modern PC.
Mm-hmm.
Sort of a speed running thing.
That's where the line blurs for me a little bit because it's
Right.
This is kind of like
on the wording anyway.
It's kind of like classic cars. When I had my '66 Charger back in the day, I bought it, I had it. It got rusty, got rid of it. And you look back now, and why did you get rid of it? And if you think about it, there was large portions of rust that were pretty bad and bred in the frame. Because back then we had salt on the roads, in New York and in Toledo, Ohio, where you drove it,
Mm-hmm.
and they became useless. because you can't really fix it. Now they're fixing it. They take a fully rusted out thing and fix it. Same with PCs.
Right.
They're you're putting the same hardware in it. You're getting the same result. It's all brand new, and it runs and sounds good. And that's what our computers are doing.
Well, I mean, vintage car, that's a good example here. If you have a vintage car, but it's basically all you got left is the frame, and you've replaced it with a new engine and new seats and a new dash and everything else, is that a vintage car anymore?
Yeah, they're selling, you can get a 66 Charger rear fender, brand new, and tear the one you got off.
New old stock.
Well, this one on, and it looks just like stock. I mean,
yeah. Again, lines can get blurred, and is it in the eye of the beholder? And are you a purist? Are you an enthusiast? Is there a right or wrong? I guess it depends if you're the gatekeeper of a hobby or you're just a member of the hobby. But if you're just somebody who enjoys a hobby, I don't think there's a right or wrong.
I heard very wise words one time when somebody said, "There is no wrong way to CoCo."
Oh, really? That sounds.
What's cool is if you have enough CoCos, you can have a radical one that looks like Steggy's Black Beauty.
Right.
And then you could have, others that are, completely stock or a completely stock 128, and then same with CoCo 2s and the original CoCos. You're going to have a 4K sitting at home and try firing that up and trying to find a program that'll run. That's the fun part, because I don't think they're really labeled, are they?
Yeah, and it's a blurred line too, because I mean, like the Gimme X, for example, you're putting some more modern hardware into a machine to boost the capability. But I'll be honest, we did that back in the day too. We just didn't have the technology to take it quite that far. We were, Tandy says 512K maximum RAM on a CoCo 3, or even on the original C and D board CoCo 1s, it was max 16K of RAM, period. And then people were hacking in 32, then they hacked in 64, then they hacked in 128. We've been doing this the whole time. I mean, it's just
like easier you said, now with the modern hardware.
Right.
Yeah, it's just easier and cheaper now to do with modern stuff.
Right.
You could have done it back then, but it would cost you like $1,000 to do the upgrade. Now it's like $70.
Right, and people look at a certain hobby a certain way, like classic cards. Some people might say, I only am interested in ones that are completely stock, completely original, all original parts from the original time frame. And if you replace anything, then you've defiled or distorted that vehicle, right? So
they call some of that resto mods.
Resto, like restoration.
Restoring it modern.
Yeah.
And that's where everybody's different. Some people are collecting. They want the original stock stuff because that's what they want to collect. Others are using them and they want to push the limits based on the original hardware design. Other people are doing it on the software side where they can overclock and do if we had a basic that ran 100 times faster, what could I do with it? Right. So I mean, there's various levels of it. And it doesn't really matter in the broad scheme of things. Whatever you like doing, that's what you should do.
That's in the eye of the beholder, right there. Right? How you want to work your hobby is up to you, right?
Collect examples of everything, keep them stocked, then get the another copy of it and start modding
get the beaters, right? Get the beaters, right?
Yeah.
So get the beater machine that you can do whatever you want to. So
that's my my mantra.
Is it always good also to get the box that came in and the original receipt and everything?
I haven't seen any of mine of those for decades, so not even worried about it.
Sometimes it's nice to get them and you can see, this computer was bought at this store and I used to shop at that store. So I probably know the person that bought this.
Right, because sometimes the name is on the receipt because that's what they did. Yeah. They got all your personal information, name, address, phone number, social security number, date of birth, blood type, mother's maiden name.
Your passport, whatever.
I still have my original Sinclair's ZX81 receipt.
When you think about it, buying a product at Radio Shack now was like filling out a security form. Like, hey, what city were you born in? Right?
They were like Facebook.
Where did you meet your spouse? What's your pet's name?
They took all your information and then they sent you catalogs and flyers, just like Facebook giving you ads.
But they called me Pat Wilson, and that worked for years and years.
Mark Overholzer is holding up a ZX.
This is my original ZX from April 1982.
Your original ZX. Yeah, and it's not every day you can look at a computer and say, man, this thing makes the MC10 look impressive, right? But those things you do. Because when you set that thing next to the MC10, that's like a very thin wafer, right? Compared to the MC10.
You can make a computer with 4 parts.
It's got a better wedge for doors.
I would be hesitant putting that in holding a window.
Yeah, the MC10's more squarish and sturdy for the window. That's more like a door jamb to hold the door open if it keeps swinging shut on you, I think.
Yeah, it'll tip.
Oh, Lord.
The ZX81 was pretty impressive little computer. I mean, this was a kit. It was $100 US. And, it actually functioned.
Right. Its predecessor was 199, the ZX80, and that was dirt cheap for that time period because that was a year earlier.
My previous
when I
computer,
tried it, it had a black and white screen, and it was very touchy with the keyboard. I mean, it didn't have like key bounce, but bam, 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 third time,
You really wanted the Channel 36 one because the display was nice.
Yeah.
If the display is nice, then the rest of the computer is okay.
I think the model of that, the motto of that system was "spare all expense," right? So
was
worse than Tandy, right? So
that was I was going to say that's actually worse than Tandy.
Yeah, spare all expense.
Go as cheap as possible.
Yeah.
It said Timex on there, but there was no real-time clock.
Yeah, it
only the later one said Timex.
Yeah, but listen, hey, it keeps on ticking. We're still working, right? So,
what's the deal on Timex? How did it get in there?
Go ahead,
American name.
Basically, Timex. Yeah, actually Sinclair had Timex manufacture them, and so originally they made them themselves. This one actually says made in England, whereas I have a bunch of the Timex Sinclair 1000s, and they're made a couple different places. The RAM packs, I have some from Portugal and some from Scotland, and I think some from the U.S.
So I believe if you lick that, it's going to keep ticking.
Yeah, takes a licking and keeps on ticking. Right?
Takes a
show it.
Come on. Oh,
I think Alan says it best in the chat. He said someone out Tandy itself on that one.
All right. Well, it's like to hold my beer. I can do that cheaper.
Right. I believe we've diverged long enough. Mr. Things, you want to tell us what game we'll be playing next week?
Well, certainly. Let's see if anybody can recognize this game.
Dun, dun, dun. Oh, is this the Contras? The Contras.
That's exactly what it is.
The Contras.
Looks like a Boulder game.
CoCo 3, 512K, joysticks, 2-button, I believe, are pretty well necessary, I think.
Yeah.
And disk drive, because it requires 3 disks.
Yes, there's 3 disks.
So this is a CoCo 3 game then.
It is an CoCo 3, 512K.
This is a interesting 1980s game because of what went on at the time.
Yeah, there's a whole long convoluted. This game took multiple years to release. It had to go through a couple programmers. Doug Maston's actually the main author that started it, is actually in our Discord on occasion too. So.
Oh.
Okay, there you go.
So that's what we'll be playing next week. And just a reminder that you have 2 weeks left to get 0 Hour before it'll be the game of the week, which will be the week of April 16th to the 23rd.
And you can get a digital copy either way. You can just buy the digital straight up or buy the physical and get the digital right away, so you don't have to worry about it being shipped to you.
Exactly. So go to Nick's site and buy that game. And get your digital copy immediately. And Nick, I'll take that in Ferrari hubcaps, please.
That's right. Nick needs the exercise to keep walking out to that mailbox every day, picking up those checks. So buy early, buy often.
So everyone gets the digital copy.
That's right.
Even if you order the CD, you get a digital as well.
Okay, we have a question from Kevin Holloway. Is it hard to replace the battery in that Timex? Is that a watch joke, or is there an actual battery in that computer too?
There's no battery.
Okay. Interestingly enough, Timex is re-releasing their retro digital watches. I think the model number is like Z80 or something like that. But there's the old like stainless steel wristband Timex, LCD style, and there's even one that's got like a Space Invaders faceplate on it too. But so you can buy that old style Timex.
Was it Timex that made the game watches?
Not sure, but.
everybody had it in school, and you could hear beep, beep, beep.
Oh,
beep.
yeah.
Casio had a bunch.
Casio had
Casio?
that. Casio, yeah.
Yeah,
and
Casio.
then Frederick Provancha says, I agree, there is no wrong way to CoCo. If you're a collector and want the original hardware, that's fine. Just don't tell me I'm wrong if I'm interested in CoCoing differently. There you go. Don't.
Yep, I completely agree, except that, Frederick, the way you're doing it is wrong.
Hey, has anybody after 1985 found out where Carmen is?
Many times.
I believe her and Waldo are
I
both
think she's in
shacked up
San
somewhere.
Diego.
So yeah.
She's in one of those countries that no longer exists since that game was made.
Yeah, right.
Right.
All right, so next week's game is The Contras, and very good game. Hardware scrolling, digital music, digital sound effects. It's a very close facsimile of the Nintendo version of the Contra game, and pretty good.
Well, I think it goes quite differently in the later levels, if I read that correctly on Curtis's website.
Okay.
Yeah, and it has an ending. You can actually win the game.
No, there's a ROM pack, right?
No, it's 3 floppies.
No, it's 3 floppy disks.
You have to load multiple floppies.
There's no ROM pack.
Nope.
Nope.
If you're playing Contras on a ROM pack, you're doing it wrong, Ron. That would be a wrong way to CoCo.
You're wrong way to CoCo.
Maybe I was thinking of Rampage then.
Yeah.
I think you're thinking of RoboCop, actually.
And if you're playing it on real hardware, the CoCo SDC, remember to load the directory, and then you can use the button on the
Press
side.
the button to switch
load the different disks.
Control M or
Shift M to mount the directory.
Shift M to mount the directory, and then
you got to tap the little
prompts for the next disk. Hit the button. You'll see it flash once, twice, or 3 times, depending which disk number you're selecting.
Now, wasn't that cool when we first did it?
Yeah, and it still is.
Pretty neat.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, so we have concluded the game on results. We've talked about the game of next week. We do have a few promo spots to run, and then
Before you do that, I might as well get the game on news because it's only one story, basically.
One story of Game On News. My lord, Curtis Boyle, please regale us with this news.
Aside from all the other Game On stuff like Bruce and everything else, so thought I'd just get those out of the way before we go on to the bigger news.
From around the world. News when you need it most.
Hey, you guys seen that?
Ooh, that is cool.
So the Japanese people there that have their little site called Inufutu, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it right, Inufuto, has got their new game called Ascend coming out. And this is the guys that do like 30 different platforms.
Right.
And starting just a couple of days ago,
There's
CoCo
the
and MC10 versions are both out.
Beauty.
Wow.
So the CoCo version requires 32K, and they got the cassette version you can download here, the WAV file, and the MC10 requires 16K RAM expansion pack or higher. And I've actually got both videos queued up, and I thought I'd just play them so you can kind of see what the differences are. The resolution's a bit higher on the CoCo one, and this since it was the first one out, I'll play that one first.
The CoCo 1 game playing on a CoCo 3. Hey, OG Hugo, how are you? OG is one of our newest patrons. Thanks for becoming a patron, Hugo. Ascend. I like the font. Very looks like he's wearing a football helmet. Oh, that's really good animation. That's very much like in television. Oh, and the scrolling. Scrolling. Keep those levels scrolling. Rawhide. All right, so it looks like he's pushing up that green thingy there.
Yeah, basically from what I can tell, the monsters have a set path they come down, and they'll go down ladders and stuff, so you kind of know where they're going to go, and you push these green gems up to block them off, basically.
Okay.
So that they can't get to you, and you kind of lock them off. And then you have to ascend, a little bit of a scrolling screen to go up to the top.
Oh, neat. The animation's really good.
Anyway, that's the CoCo version, and then we'll compare
It's
it with
almost
the
got
MC10.
kind of like a Apple Panic, Space Panic load runner.
A little bit, but that pushing up the gem to block, that was kind of cool. I'd not seen that before.
Exact, on the MC10. And look, even the font. I like that font. It's a beauty, eh? You notice the kind of hollowness of the sound's a little different, I guess, just on the...
and the player looks a fair bit different. The monsters are pretty close to the player.
because this is one from P Mode 3 to P Mode 1, so you got less resolution. But still, the soul of the game is there.
That's a pretty righteous. We'll get it both to work.
Absolutely. So it looks like they're always going to go down. When they see a ladder, they're going to drop. So they're, like you say, they're kind of predictable in that regard, right? So.
Well, the round ones, yes. The other ones just go back and forth.
Ah, beauty, eh?
That's the ones you got to kind of block off.
Yeah. Yeah, but still, even on the blockier graphics, the animation is really good. It's still kind of that Intellivision Running Man style animation there. And that little color baseball shades of right there too, you know?
Yeah. Can you imagine having gotten this on the MC10 back in the day?
Holy crap.
When it first came out?
They would have sold more than 4 of them.
Survived.
Yeah, they might have sold more than 4 units back then.
They might have lasted more than a year in the stores.
Yeah,
then. Yeah.
That is a beauty, eh?
So this was pretty cool, and there's a news item coming up in the regular news, which I'll get to because it's more about development stuff here. But on Atari Age, somebody posted that this was coming out. They saw that it had just came out for a bunch of the Japanese-based systems,
right.
And he actually got links to the GitHub that actually contains the source code for this engine, what CPUs it supports. It's basically a C-style language, but not quite C. It's kind of like CMOC in that way. And I'll get into some more details there, but it looks like what CPUs it's designed to handle, including 6809.
Wow.
And some of the graphic engine stuff, there's old source codes there. So if you want to even get in, possibly if you know Japanese, you might even be able to get involved with it if you wanted to. But I like the fact they're doing these big, massive multi-platform ones so that every one of these 30-odd retro systems get these games.
It's like a one and done.
Yeah. So anyway, those are both available for download. The links we've got in the show notes on Discord. If anybody wanted to paste it on here, feel free. But you can download it right now for both the CoCo and the MC10.
What's neat is you didn't have to know any English or anything or Japanese to play the game.
No.
Yeah, it's pretty simple. I mean, their webpage here, I mean, it'll say Ascend in English.
Stay on this page for a second. All right. Okay. So when we look at the top one, so this is now the question you had earlier, Ron. Do colors make the game better, right? So you can see these ones here, black background, blue platforms, yellow ladders, different colored characters. Does that make it look better? Again, that's kind of in the eye of the beholder. Obviously, there's more distinction in what things are, but does the CoCo and MC10 version look worse for having less color? And my opinion is not necessarily.
Or the different color sets like this one here, the PC 8001 MK Mark II. Like this one up here, the PC 6001 looks like it's using a VDG. It's got the narrower bands and it's got the same color set as the MC10.
Right, that looks like a VDG, exactly.
Here's one where they actually have more text-based stuff.
Flags. Yeah.
There's a black and white one.
Completely monochrome. So if the game is a fun game, then I think...
Well,
look at that one there. On the MZ 1500, the guy looks like he's got colored shirt and pants, too. He looks a little different, right? So,
like here, the characters actually look more detailed in monochrome.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So higher res, less colors.
And this is
lower res.
This is a much lower res one here. That's probably using character graphics. That's why.
Yeah.
Right?
Like they did an interesting way of getting the player.
Kind of like the pet ski, right? That's kind of what that reminds me of there, right?
And like a lot of these systems I've never heard of. Here's the Spectrum version.
Right.
So we're not going to get that back, are we?
FM7, which is another 6809 based system.
Right. Lots of different, And then as Junior, what is that? What's Junior? PC Junior?
I'm not sure.
Or JR?
Might be.
Or JR100.
Oh, JR100, JR200. That must be a different platform then. Okay. I don't know.
Look at that black and white. It's a lot different.
Yeah, that's like grayscale.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this one has the source links after the cassette and wave, but they're actually linking the sources for them as well.
Yeah, actually, I was taking a look at some of the engine stuff there because it looks like they are making this publicly better.
Yeah, this still looks really good, even on that one, the kind of grayscale one.
Yep.
That's cool.
I like the cross-platform stuff. There's a couple cross-platform stories. This is one of them that we'll be covering in the regular news, but there's another one that's got a bit of an update too. So we'll talk about that when we get to that. Anyway, that's all I had for the Game On News because I knew like Bruce was going to be on to talk about his stuff, and there's a lot of projects undergoing right now. I mean, Nick's working already on trying out things for his next project. Jay and I are still working on Pet Ski. I still got to get back to Liberation at some point. There's a ton of development going on. So for the game players out there, there's a lot of stuff still coming.
On the horizon. Very, very cool. All right. Well, we're going to take a brief commercial break and thank our patrons and whatnot. And then we'll be back with Mikey Furman's favorite part of the show, the snooze and newsy. So let me go ahead and share.
I like this one because he's on it. So.
Oh. Ooh. Okay. All right, we'll be back after these words, kids.
Hi, Retro Tech Heads. Data Soup here. You're watching CoCoTALK, the world's leading live talk show featuring the Tandy color computer and proudly Patreon sponsored by RetroTechTime.com.
CoCoTALK would like to thank our patrons who sponsor our program, so our heartfelt gratitude goes out to Alan Huffman, Alan Murphy, Blair Ledoux, Bowton Aaron, Brendan Donahue, Brian Weasler, Brian Walsh, Karen Anscombe, D. Bruce Moore, Daddy Burrito, Daniel Williams, Diego, Eric Canales, Glenn Hewlett, Graham Vebke, Grant Leedy, Henry Strickland, Jason Downs, J Style, Ken Reichert, Malfunct, Michael Pitsley, Michael Rayburn, OG Hugo, Paul Fiscarelli, Paul Shoemaker, Paul Thayer, Retro Tech Time, Rick Hewlin, Rob Inman, Rocky Hill, Stephen Wagner, Steve Batson, Steve Rasmussen, Terry Steen, Terry Steggy, The Backyard Shed Gang, Tim Thayer, Tom C., Tom Gunderson, Tom Heron, Tom S., Tony C., and William Athan. Thank you ever so much, patrons.
It's time for everyone's favorite segment, Who's New to Discord This Week?
Player. Manage. My name is Jonah, and I'm like trying to be into old computers. I hope to learn some things about retro computers. Sticks. Hey all, Paul here. I was given a CoCo 1 as an 8-year-old in 1982, started BASIC, and assembly a couple of years later with a need for speed. Still have a soft spot for my first computer, dug it out and got a CoCo SDC relatively recently. Doc_tree. Hey, I'm Deuce, I am into the CoCo line from computers from the 80s. I try and learn all I can about these interesting machines that I did not get to use. I hope to achieve more knowledge with the CoCo line and maybe even more, also to hang out and learn from others with more experience than me. The previous bios were edited for time's sake. Thanks to Melly, Boysantech, Paul Fiscarelli, Eric Canales, the Glenside Color Computer Club, Terry Stagg E., and the CoCoTALK patrons for boosting the server. Please consider joining Discord and visiting the welcome section to read these bios in full and see what the community has to offer. At discord.cocotalk.live.
From around the world, what you need to know. Get caught up on news with L. Curtis Boyle.
And now a Muppet News Flash.
All right, get caught up on news with L. Curtis Boyle.
Okay, so the first one here is actually one of Ken Waters' videos here on Basic 9. He's doing part 3, going through variables and loops. And the main reason for that is that people that are only familiar with extended basic or color basic, etc., you only have 2 types of variables, string and a real floating point number. And loops, you basically got 4 next loops. So Ken kind of goes into all the additional stuff that's in Basic 09. So I'll mute it here so we don't hear it. But Ken, do you want to just kind of describe what you went through here, what you discovered?
Okay, well, first off, I just was showing, as you said, the different kind of variables you can use because they come in handy for the different types of loops that you use. And yeah, then I just went through with examples of a bunch of the loops and also one of the interesting things is you can create your own variable types here, combine different like integers, real strings, booleans, all in one variable. So
yeah, for those of you that are familiar with like more modern languages where you can do like a word dot a word, and it's, you know, the main structure's name is the first part, and after the dot is like a sub part of the structure. Yeah. That's kind of what the type and dim type style variables do here, which is actually typing in right now. So you can create like almost a record.
Yeah. So if I'm using it as example here, like if you had a hotel, you could do a booking for somebody with their name, the room that they're getting, their credit card number, all with different variable types, all within the same variable, basically.
Yeah, and that's one of the big strengths, I think. There's kind of a field command where you can do something a little bit similar in this basic, but it's nowhere near as powerful as this, where quite frankly it's easy to use.
Mm-hmm. So it's a really interesting thing for being able to do different programs. And then here I'm just going through the different types of loops.
Yeah. So here you do like an if then with go tos and stuff, kind of the old style for next loops. Then you get into
the only change you have to make is the adding the end if.
Yeah. And then you get into whiles and repeats.
Yeah.
Which are basically the difference between a repeat and a while. One checks to see if whatever you're going to use to exit if a variable is something. One checks at the beginning of the loop and one checks at the end. So the first case, it'll not even run the loop if that condition is met.
Exactly.
And the other one, it'll always do it at least once before it kicks out.
And another thing that I do show in the video here is just how much faster basic 09 is if you use integers.
Yeah,
over
if you can
real
do
numbers.
that, definitely do it. It's a huge speed increase.
Just on a little short program that I wrote there that does 500 calculations. I think it's more in the middle.
Oh, is it? Oh, yeah, there we are.
There we go. This integer speed test.
This is similar to what James Jones has been doing too, showing some.
Yeah.
He stole the idea from me.
Ah.
And if you do nothing, you get reals, right?
Yeah, if you do nothing, you get real numbers. So you can see how much slower it took to run that really short little program there.
Yeah, I mean, that was done mainly for backwards compatibility. So if you define a variable name with a $sign at the end of it, it'll default to being a 32-character string. Mm-hmm. And if you just try to treat something as a numeric variable, it defaults to real, because that's what most basics did at the time. It's definitely worth your while, though, if you don't need to do that. Like if you can fit it into a 16-bit integer, definitely use integer. It's way faster. In fact, if you go through the actual code of Basic 9 itself, it's got completely separate routines for a lot of math and a lot of the loop constructs for integers and reals. Like they have completely different routines they run for each. It doesn't try to like mash it all together. That's one of the reasons it's nice and fast.
And something I didn't put in the video that actually I think you showed me the one time, Curtis, was actually what math operation you do here is faster.
Mm-hmm.
So I think
multiplying
is
for
faster.
example, or dividing is, and if you have a 6 or 9, some of those are even optimized again, so you can even get faster yet. So there's a lot more to do on that front yet. There's only a few things that have been really done.
Mm-hmm. And then, of course, the most interesting loop statement that Basic 09 has is the loop, which allows you to put the check anywhere within the program. So you can put the exit check anywhere within the program, beginning, middle, or end, and you can use multiple checks that it'll do different things for different results.
Yeah. And one of the powerful things about that, the exit if, like if you see here, you can see loop. So inside the loop to end loop, it's always going to do x equals x plus 1 regardless. And then it has exit if x is greater than 26, then end at exit, which means once it hits 26, it'll go past the end loop. You can, as Ken mentioned, you can do this multiple times. You can have multiple ways to get out. But in between the then exit, the exit if and the end exit, you can actually put special code. So it'll actually run code for a certain exit condition.
If you just go forward a little bit, I did another example program that. So here. So it's got 2 exit if statements in it, and the one they both do print something just before they exit. So, and one actually doesn't exit; it just gives you a breakpoint in the middle of the program, then goes back to the beginning of the loop again.
Yeah. A couple of comments here in the chat. And Rick Buelan, who's actually on the panel too, mentioned that it was, originally Basic 9 was the first project that Microware and Motorola worked on together. OS 9 was created as a surrounding environment for Basic 9. Basic 9 was actually the main one. And that was helped along with by Terry Ritter, is one of the people that designed the 6809. They worked with Microware directly on getting Basic 9 written to show off the CPU that they were just about to bring out. So they're definitely kind of married at the hip type thing. It's a good tutorial video. James has been doing a lot of the comparison videos between Disk Basic and Basic 09, either to show you alternative ways to do things and also to show the speed. I know we covered one of his last week, the Civ of Arrest. I don't know how to pronounce this. Rastades? Something like that. Where he was running out of memory on the Disk Basic side of things because of the fact that every number takes 5 bytes and has a huge array of 8,000 elements. You can't even fit that in Basic normally. So he was putting them into strings and trying to poke them and do all kinds of things trying to get around the limitations.
Yeah, they're good videos. This just really show how much more powerful Basic 09 is than Disk Basic.
Yeah, and I might as well do a plug for the two of us too. So if you're going to be at CoCo Fest here in May, we're actually the first seminar, I think, on Saturday morning, and we're doing.
I thought it was Sunday morning.
Was it
Aren't
Sunday?
we doing Sunday morning?
Well, you have the CoCo Fest tabs up here. We'll get to that shortly. I was looking at it earlier today too. I think you guys are let me see. I'll pull it up real quick. Well, you're the first one listed as far as the speakers goes.
I just couldn't remember if it's Saturday or Sunday. We're the first. I know we're first in the morning.
You sent me a note to say it was Sunday morning, because I was saying that good, we get everybody when they're hungover.
Yeah, as far as when you look under speakers, you're the first one listed for speakers, but I don't know if that maps to the schedule.
Yeah, and I think that's just in the order of when they came in or something when we submitted.
Okay.
Like all the speakers are booked. They don't have all the speakers have a little write-up set because that's up to the speaker to send to Glenn's side to put on the site. So people are still working on those. But I did want to mention we're going to be doing a Basic 9 seminar. There's going to be 3 parts to it. There'll be Ken doing the first part, which this basically we're concentrating on graphic and enhancements in the GFX2 module and sound and a few other things too. But it's basically the GFX2 module to do graphics and sound, etc. We're concentrating on what has been added to it since Tandy released the original version back in '87. So this is all the enhancements that are in Nitrous 9. Doesn't matter if you have a 609, 609. This applies to both. So Ken will be covering like the new graphic drawing commands and an easier way to do sound without having to do weird sys-calls and
the simple stuff. I'll be doing the simple part.
And then I'll be getting
understandable part.
Yeah, and then I'll be putting Nick to sleep right after that for 20 minutes by going into how to do the high-level menu handling, how to do drop-down menus and auto-follow mouse and all that kind of stuff.
Will Nick,
and then we'll
will Nick join us via Zoom to demonstrate how to use the trash can by any chance? Or
lift lid, close lid.
Throw it all in the bin.
It's like shrimps in the barbie, except it's code in the trash. But yeah, then the very last bit here, we're going to reserve 10, 15, 20 minutes roughly for basically a general Q&A. Now, that doesn't have to stick with the actual topic of Basic 9 graphics module specifically, though it can. But if anybody has any other general Basic 9 or Nitrous 9 questions, they can feel free to ask during that.
Soldering tips?
No, there won't be any. Well, actually, if Ken answers, maybe.
Yeah, I can do some soldering tips.
Okay.
Yeah. My tip, don't do it. You can hurt yourself. That's what my tip would be.
My tip, practice before you actually touch a real old machine.
Right. Roger that. Over.
Anyway, so we'll see you guys all at the fest in that seminar if you're still awake by the end of it. Great.
Got my hotel room booked.
Yeah, same with me. Next up, Ron Klein announced a MAME update to version 2.4.2 for the CoCo Pi. Now, this actually, I think he's done 2 brief releases on this now, too. There's a little bit of a fix-up. Now, this features a test patch that is currently not part of the mainstream MAME build. And this is done by Tim Linder. Now, he wants some feedback on this, and I was hoping maybe Tim would be able to pop by to kind of explain in more detail. But basically, he's trying to tweak the emulation of the high-res joystick interface because there's some people, I think Roger Hallman being one who was one of the co-authors of C3 Pages back in the day, a CoCo 3 desktop publishing tool, that it's not quite smooth, like chunks of it you can't get to, and it's jittery and whatever else. There's some issues with the emulation here. So that he did some updates here that are available for the latest CoCo Pi build. And if you download that, he would like to get some feedback, try some programs. They can be games, they can be GUI stuff, they can be graphic editors, whatever, that uses the high-res joystick interface, the Tandy one, and see if you have any issues and kind of report back to him. I didn't know if he had anything specific he was trying to look for. I was kind of hoping you'd be on, or at least in the chat, to be able to identify that. But Ron Klein might know about that too, so you can ask him as well. I'm assuming, Stevie, you probably haven't had time this week to try this out yourself.
Negative, Ghost Rider.
Yeah,
I know a teeny bit about this because I lent Tim Lindner my high-res adapter for testing.
Okay, so what exactly is the issues you've been hitting with MAME? Do you know?
Basically, the MAME emulation doesn't cover the full range that the adapter puts out. I took my adapter up there last week, and he plugged it in and was running a test, and he's getting some really interesting wild plots, stuff that's way out of range. Actually, it's like negative numbers. And so basically, MAME adapter is not doing any of that. So somebody's taking advantage of some feature that's not being reproduced correctly. So at least he has a baseline to work with now. So
okay, cool.
So I just want to chime in on this a little bit. So number one, hats off to Ron Klein for always being way, way, way on top of this. And I think we're very lucky to have somebody like, I've mentioned this before, I called him Tenacious T, right? So Tim Lindner is in our community, and he's really involved and concerned with how things are working. And I think to a degree, Barry Nelson shares those same concerns, but I actually brought up some questions on Facebook this week because Barry put a post in about his latest
we'll be getting to that
fork.
post in a
Okay,
bit.
so maybe we'll talk about that too. And maybe I'll save that discussion for when we get to that article, because I still don't understand it, and it's just one of those things. Maybe we can agree to disagree, but some people will get on a certain soapbox and say this is why they're doing it. I won't necessarily ever agree with that, but we're all entitled to the paths we choose in life, right? So, but one thing I will say about this, a couple things. Number one, Ron Klein is badass for constantly doing this and updating this, and he's really in tune with everything that's happening and helping to push this and making it so user-friendly, especially if you have the Pi. You go to a menu, you hit update, you hit fix, and you just update your version. It's all so easy to do. So anybody who's struggling with emulating a color computer, the CoCo Pi makes it easy if you can follow the directions on the videos and ask the questions. It's really simple to do. But to that end, the more we have these discussions about having to fix this in MAME, and MAME's always changing and we're always having to fix. I like that we discover things that aren't emulated right and we get it to emulate right. But I'm becoming more and more of a fan of XROAR, because XROAR is not going to be subject to the problems that MAME does, because you have like multiple hands in that cookie jar, right? So it's a single source code, a single author, and you can say, look, can you add this? Can you change this? Can you fix that? It'll get done, and it won't get broken every 6 weeks when somebody else decides to change something else. So
yeah, they might be changing it for a completely different machine, but it
you
shares
know what
a
I
chip
mean.
with the
So
CoCo and they break something.
I understand the challenges of MAME being this big open source consortium has to serve multiple purposes. My school of thought is I would rather people focus on updating the main MAME distro than maintaining forks. That's just that's what makes sense to me. But the challenges that MAME has, I think, and the growth that XROAR is doing, I would love to see a day where we just have one emulator that emulates everything and does it well enough that we don't have to worry about multiple emulators, So, and I think
and there's still some favorites. I mean, VCC has some issues with some pieces of emulation, but it's also still, even more than XROAR, the most user-friendly. So,
right.
Yeah, it would be nice to have one universal one that just is super easy to use. It will allow you to use command line if that's what you want to use to build scripts and stuff, or it can be completely GUI driven to get at everything. Which XROAR has certain things you can only do from the command line. If you're not a command line person, you'll never be able to use these things. So,
yeah, fair enough. Again, there's no wrong way to emulate either, but we're going to have our preferences, right?
Yeah, exactly.
MAME is really starting to sound like Debian, where here comes all the distros, Ubuntu, and what kind of MAME do you use? I use this kind of MAME.
Well, MAME has a single central distro. It's just like, we'll get into it when we get to Barry's story.
Yeah, Ron, were you going to say something?
Yeah, when you download this, are you automatically using the new package?
No, you have to do three things. You first have to update from Git repo. You then you have to run the fix script.
Done that.
And then last but not least, you go into select MAME version, and then you'll see a list of all the various versions that are installed.
Yeah,
and
I don't see that list on mine.
It's in one of the menus, and I don't remember I don't know if it's in the administrator menu or the emulator menu, but the third step is to select that new version to make that the default active version. And the nice thing about that is with the CoCoPi distribution, as we have these new updates, if you needed to roll back, you can just go to that menu and then change the default MAME you want to use. So you can actually, kind of slide up and down the ladder on versions for stuff in the CoCoPi. It makes it real easy to do if I have to uninstall and reinstall and things like that. I don't remember exactly what menu that's in, but it's in one of those handful of videos that I did originally when we set up that new menu structure. But off the top of my head, I don't know. If I find it again, I'll shoot you a message on Discord or something.
You did a tutorial video on how to do this too, didn't you?
I did. I just don't remember.
No, I'm just saying that if Ron can find that video, he can actually just watch it, and it gives you step by step on screen.
And there's a much needed video that I want to get with Ron Klein to do, which is basically using the CoCoPi as a development environment, because there's so many tools on here for doing the cross assembly using an editor, and you can write in BASIC, you can write in CMOC, you can write in assembly in an editor and have it create the disk image and pop up an emulator and test your source code all from that single desktop. So for those who don't know how to build a development environment and don't know how to write programs in BASIC on an editor and make it work in an emulator without having to worry about copying and pasting and L printing and all the stuff you have to do to get code in and out, there's a real easy way to cross-develop on a variety of languages that's all built into the CoCoPi, and I'd just love to do a real high-level, simple way to show people what you can do with some of that kind of stuff. And then on top of that, which I don't know if we've officially announced this, but one of the things that's been in the CoCoPi for a long time now is QB64, which is a Quick Basic. And Ron put that in for me specifically because I'm working on a few projects in Quick Basic, and I want to have CoCoPi versions that will run on the Pi. What we didn't realize initially was because there was not a Pi binary available from the QB64 project. So Ron just took the source code and whatever the term is, you make it, you build it, you assemble it, whatever it is. So he just compiled the source code on the Pi, and the program ran. But when it went to do its compilation, the actual binary files that it created were having issues because it was compiling to x86 versus ARM. And so Ron had to work with developers and stuff to get that fixed. So now QB64 actually works on the CoCoPi right on the desktop, and it's there. So if you don't want to do cross-assembly and write CoCoBasic or CoCoAssembly, you can just write BASIC on the CoCoPi in QB64 and write a program that'll run super fast in BASIC and have it run as an executable. So there's so much development goodies on there that we really haven't spent the time to demonstrate or illustrate yet. That's a project that's long overdue, that I want to do some videos on that, because it is just a cornucopia of development stuff that is there for those who want to.
Because QB64 you have covered, because you showed us your adventure game you were doing in it, but you haven't covered anything on how to use all these tools and where to find
Yeah. So anyways, I know I went really divergent there, but I just can't thank Ron enough, because he's a machine. Love that man, Ron Klein. Or you too, Ron Devo. I love you too. So yeah, I love you, man.
Kind of related to this, John Murphy had a question because he was going through the release notes for this, the latest versions of MAME here. This is concerning the official 242, and there's a added note here about added RSDOS and OS9 file system to floppy controller cartridges by Nathan Woods, who's of course one of the original developers of MAME from right at the beginning. He was asking, what exactly is this? And then Tim Linder mentioned that, like, the image tool program that comes with it, you can create OS9 or disk basic formatted disk images, but it just creates a raw blank. It makes a disk file. You still have to go into the emulated operating system of your choice and then format it in the correct one. And now it's actually got the ability that it'll create it pre-formatted for you, so that whole extra step is gone. You don't have to create the disk file with image tool, launch MAME, type disk in E0 to actually format it so you can actually use it for anything. It actually will do that for you on both formats. I'm assuming they'll be probably filling this in for a lot of the other cross platforms that are in there as well. But that was kind of cool, because I didn't realize that the latest version of Image Tool has that option. Because I've used Image Tool to create images, and I always have to launch OS9 and format it in there. I have to launch CoCo 3 Basic and then disk in E0 it there. Now you don't have to do that. It's actually built right into the Image Tool itself. So that's also part of the new 0.242 MAME, is the new version of Image Tool. Hey, CoCo Fest schedule. I was hoping Grant Lee would be here, but he's sick with a cold today. So this kind of goes into what's the general schedule here, and it basically just says presentation numbers.
First presenter, second presenter, third. So they don't have the names filled in yet, huh?
Yeah. Well, that's a separate page. This is just the actual schedule of when things are.
Okay, hold on. Tim Leonard just responded, says, that is a little inaccurate. This is not a change to image tool. That tool has always been able to create initialized disk images. The new thing is that you can create initialized images in MAME.
Oh, okay. Thanks for the correction, Tim. And Tim, actually, if you want to pop on quickly to talk about your high-res, what you're actually looking for in the high-res interface testing for your custom version of MAME that's in Cocoa Pi, please feel free to hop on for a few seconds. So yeah, this is just basically the general schedule. You'll notice we actually have breaks between some of the presentations here on some of the days here. Like this one ends at 9 and then at 9:30, so there's a little bit of break. I see some of them are still run together a little bit, so that's because we just got a lot of presentations.
To be determined.
Yeah. And then as far as the actual speakers, for people that have written up so far, they've published up here. So there's me and Ken here doing our little Basic 9 GFX2 enhancements. The CoCo crew is having a general one here. Bruce Moore is having one on his new game that he's doing. John Linville's doing a second seminar here, doing a technical overview of the hardware on the CoCo 1 and 2 platform, etc. So that's the ones that have been submitted so far. There's more of these coming. Each of the individual speakers has to submit the stuff to Grant and to Glenn's side, and they'll put them up as they get them. So I think we just did ours early this week too. So we should all. There'll be more updates coming to this, and we'll try to highlight those as we go, so people know exactly what all the seminars are.
Nice looking website. Thank you to Eric Canales.
Yep.
Will you guys be recording each of the different shows?
That is to be determined, because I'm not sure if I can make it. I am trying to advocate that the club has a dedicated person to do the AV and the streaming and the recording, because number one, I'm not sure I'm going to be there. Number two, I don't want to be chained to a table streaming the entire week. I want to be selfish and enjoy a weekend for once. So I want somebody else to stream it, and I don't know any of those logistics at this time, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to make it yet. So, but the plan would be to do that. Who's going to do it, how it's going to be done, are all to be determined.
Yeah, I mean, people like Brian Schubring have done live streams themselves before, so maybe we just have them set their camera up in the seminar room or something like that.
Right.
We'll make arrangements. We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Right, next up, we've got a couple of videos here from Michael Furman. Oh, Mikey.
Mikey, he likes it.
So the first one is he did a video showing you how to run Nitrous 9 ease of use on the Glenside ID controller hard drive system in MAME, which is now emulated in there recently. It's a little bit slower than doing the CoCo SDC just because of the way the hardware worked. But he goes through the entire, how to set it up and booting it up. I won't play the video here because it's 20 minutes long. But if you're interested in fiddling with this, and it also will make compatible images you can actually copy to a real ID drive, or vice versa, in the other direction type thing. So you can run it on a real hardware if you happen to have a Glenside ID controller with real hard drives on it, or you can also run it now in MAME with the emulator. So he has a complete presentation on how to get all that set up. And then this was kind of mentioned by Ron. I can't remember if this was pre-show or during the beginning of the show here. So the Southwest Technical Products Computer, SWTPC, was one of the earlier ones. This is like Altair era style stuff. And they did a 6800, which of course is the predecessor to the 6809. They made a 6800 based system. And that emulation is now in MAME 2. Now this is a computer, as Ron had mentioned, it does not have a keyboard. It does not have a screen. It's basically just a big box with some chips in it, and basically you hooked up a serial port. So he actually runs an emulated terminal to log into this, and they actually ran Flex version 2 on it as well. So it shows you how to get all that. Shows how you get all this set up, and you get to actually see on the terminal.
My goodness, Mikey, he's an overachiever.
And he had to patch the bootloader so it actually would work, and he goes into all the technical details.
Is he hand assembling the boot on this damn thing? Oh my goodness, that's some hardcore stuff there.
Check the date. March 9, 1922.
1920. That was a great year. 1922. Great year.
Yeah, that was vintage.
Oh yeah.
For those of you who have not seen Flex, though, this is familiar. The +++ prompt, which is what they use. Same, was later used by Hayes for their modems to get into command.
Yeah, we got
was
this
that
loaded.
multitasking?
Flex was not multitasking.
No,
right?
Well, not multitasking, not multi-user. Now it did handle subdirectories, if I remember, which for the time, like Flex came out in the 70s, so that's pretty early on. But it's fairly powerful because it's like OS 9 does. You see the .cmds, and that's similar to CPM and DOS. You can create your own commands that you can add to the system. So if you write your own command, you make it .command, and then you can run it anytime you want. It's not like you have to load something and exec it. It's like these are all commands you just type in the name.
Like if you wanted to do a dir/w, you could create a command called wdir that always did a wide directory listing or something like that, or a dir/p.
It's an extensible system. You can just create all these new executables, and you just keep adding to the system as much as you want. And it had various languages. There's C compilers, there's assemblers, there's BASIC, there's TSC BASIC is the other famous one. There was even like simple games and stuff for terminals.
The fact that this thing was working in 1922 is pretty impressive.
Yeah, exactly.
A turn of the century operating system, So.
Yeah, I mean, if Germany had this back in 22, they probably would have won the war, So.
That's pretty hardcore. That it's been not only is the machine being emulated, but he's emulating the serial terminal, and now he's doing this stuff in the terminal, and he's running the operating system. That's pretty extensive. Yeah. Hats off to you, Michael Furman.
And for those who haven't been around the CoCo long enough, in the early 80s, there was multiple versions of flexibility for the CoCo. There was Frank Hogg had one, Spectral Associates had one, TSC themselves had one, I believe, running natively on the 32-column screen. Some of them did some graphic updates where they could run a graphics screen and run 51 by 24 text or whatever. So this was the powerhouse operating system on the CoCo from about 81-ish till 83, 84, probably the most popular. OS 9 Level 1 came out, which was multi-user multitasking, but it used a lot more of the RAM, so you couldn't make as bigger, complex programs. And Frank Hogg rather famously said after it was out for about a year, he says, I prefer working with Flex. So he kept supporting Flex. Once the CoCo 3 came out, you had more RAM, bigger floppy drives, and windowing. That was the big crucial thing. Then he kind of dropped support for Flex completely. So Flex was much more common on the CoCo 1 and 2 in the people that are the power users back in the day.
Yeah, Tom Gunderson says this looks similar to CPM as well. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean they're kind of they're on the same time frame here because I remember Flex I think originally came out in 77.
Yeah, when we think about why did Tandy do that and what coulda, shoulda, woulda, there were so many operating systems that could have taken off, like CPM.
And this is one they looked at.
Yeah. Flex, CPM, these were all things that could have been MS-DOS. And somebody took a wrong turn somewhere, or in the case of Bill Gates, they took a right turn somewhere. But, MS-DOS became the predominant operating system. It wasn't necessarily the best, but it became the most widely adopted. And the rest is history.
The video I pointed you to, that guy said that the machine came out in 75.
No, wow.
Yeah, well, there's a couple versions of that machine, Ron, so it depends on which one you're specifically looking at. So
that particular
the very first one was 75. You're right. I'm trying to remember the one that he had in the video might have been the 77 model from what the ROM said. I can't remember, but yeah, this is pre the microcomputer market. This is the hobbyist market when you were buying Altairs and that kind of stuff, like really early on. So this is before the Model 1. This is before the Apple II, and before the PET.
Okay.
And much more serious money.
Oh yeah, big time.
Yeah, $700-800 to have a.
For any of you those that are interested in this early hard history using the Motorola chips in particular, the 6800, 6809 later on, if you go onto the Internet Archive, there's scanned copies of 68 Microjournal, which covers a lot of stuff from the late 70s, and it actually covers the CoCo and stuff later on too when it got popular. But it covers all these old SWTPC machines, smoke signal chieftains, gimmicks, all the other ones that were using 6800, 6809 chips back in the day. Covers a lot of Flex, covers a lot of OS 9 from when that came out, or it had a predecessor to the 6800 that was called RTOS, real-time operating system. So if you want a history, and also it has ads for what the prices of all the hardware was back then, if you want to really blow your mind, you can go through and take a look at them. They're all archived on the Internet Archive, so there's a ton of really cool history in there.
Curtis, did you ever kind of want to have a gimmicks machine when it was?
I would have loved to have a gimmicks machine, but they started at about $3 or $4 grand.
Right. Yeah.
And you could, if you wanted a hard drive, bump it up to $7,000-8,000 type thing.
Yeah.
But I mean, like Frank Hogg had gimmicks actually at Frank Hogg Labs. That's what they used internally with OS 9 Level 2 when it first came out, and he just loved those machines. They were fast. They had extra hardware. They had hardware-based serial ports. They had memory protection and a bunch of other things we never did get on the CoCo. So I mean, it was a really advanced machine, but it was more I wouldn't even say business. It was almost like it was a microcomputer pretending to be a mini. Is probably about as close as I could say.
They always looked mouth-watering. You know, you'd look at them and think, man, you know, what would that be like to see live?
Well, Stevie's actually seen them. They had one running at
VCF Midwest. Yeah.
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 It made my heart skip a beat. Yeah. So.
Did that have the S100 bus then?
Was it the SS50 or the 100? I can't remember.
They had its own number.
Or it had its own?
There was some different number for 6809 bus computers, and I'm not pulling it up.
Yeah, I have seen the gimmicks in person at I think the first Rainbow Fest I went to in '86. There's somebody had one set up, but I can't say I'm super familiar with the machine except for reading magazines. So
was it something
what's
like
interesting
S50 or something?
This machine didn't have a fan in it.
Passive cooling.
Yeah.
Well, the CoCo doesn't have a fan in it either, so.
No.
Though if you had one of the old Dista 1 Meg 4 slots of chips on top of each other, you kind of needed one.
Yeah. Good job, Mikey.
Yeah, so he's cranking out the content this week.
SS50 bus, Google says is.
Okay, it was a 50 instead of S100. Okay, next up we got Robert Galt. There's been, we covered this last week a bit too. Robert Sieg and Robert Galt have both been covering a lot of the fiddling around with doing composite, extended colors, basically blurring the pixels together in different colors to get more colors on the screen than the mode's actually capable of doing normally. Sockmaster has done some of this in the past too. So Robert Galt actually uploaded the disk image here to the CoCo Facebook group for Symmetry, which is a little demo that actually does some of the animated graphics, where basically it's kind of like a kaleidoscope type thing, where basically you draw something and it goes into each quarter of the screen, kind of expanding patterns. So he's got the disk image here you can download for the CoCo 3 that actually does it with the artifact and graphics. And then he's actually got some demos here, the actual videos. Play.
Yeah, it looks very much like a kaleidoscope.
Yeah.
That's cool. I remember
seeing that. And then he did a second one with a slightly different style pattern, a bit slower, but a bit more intricate.
Oh, yeah, it's a snowflake, eh? It's a beauty.
Yeah. Doesn't really show off the composite colors as well as I'd hope, but I know, and this is one I don't have anything to show you on in particular, but Robert Sieg has also been working with it a bit more, and he's found some issues with doing some vertical stuff. Is kind of doing weird things with the artifact colors that he's trying to maintain control of. And also he's had some issues with some of the compression routines at some of our graphic formats, like the before mentioned MGE or CM3 for the CoCo Max 3 people. So he's actually working on a new algorithm that hopefully should fix most of this. And I didn't have it ready as of this morning, so he said it's going to be upcoming. So I decided I'm not going to show the other pictures he's done this past week.
We'll show the after, not the before.
Exactly, yeah, because basically it does look a little bit messy at this point.
Yeah, so. Yeah, I saw it, but I see what the struggle is. But he is actively working on a resolution.
Next up, the CoCo crew released their latest monthly one, episode number 82. Show notes in here. You can come down and take a listen to it. I'll just highlight a couple of things that are mentioned on this particular episode. So there's a review of 0 Hour, which I think Nick quite liked, done by Mr. Neil. And there's a discussion on whether the CoCo 3 is actually rare, which was a rather interesting discussion. Might touch on a little bit right now to myself. And a tech discussion on MIDI and MIDI cabling, like how to build MIDI cables, what the MIDI standard is, kind of roughly how it works. It's more like a part one because MIDI's pretty expansive and still used today. So the CoCo 3 thing, they were discussing the fact that the CoCo 3 prices have gone up, and they're wondering, is it because the CoCo 3 is actually rare, or is it more just a perceived rarity and that's what's shooting the prices up? And I mean, during the discussion, people had mentioned, the CoCo 2 there's a lot more of those around. I mean, so they're a lot easier to pick up than the CoCo 3. Personally, I wouldn't classify it as rare. I mean, there's well over 1 million made. There's quite a few around. Just that everybody seems to want them at the same time now, and a lot of people have bought multiple ones because they want to have backups. So they're a little bit rare as far as being able to pick them up, off the cuff type thing is what I would say. I don't know if you guys have any
supply and demand issue.
Yeah, I think that's more of it. Because, I mean, actually, they mentioned one where somebody was selling a CoCo 3 system on eBay. I think it had a floppy drives, a cassette deck, and a few bits of other bits, and it was $1,400 asking price.
Yeah. So I mean, again, these are some things that are in the eye of the beholder. What is rare, is the availability to the average civilian scarce. So is there a scarcity of supply? But is it rare? You know, I mean, again, what's
supply and demand.
Right.
Yeah.
Now Mark Siegel just says we sold many more CoCo 3s than CoCo 1s and 2s. So based on that statement, the inventory should not be the issue, but how many are out there in the wild? How many are available? The supply and demand. So, is it rare?
Mark, if that is true, then you guys must have restarted serial numbers periodically then, because I found serial numbers in the CoCo 2 way higher than any CoCo 3 I've seen. I've actually got a database I've been keeping track anytime I see them on eBay. So,
serious talk, soulful discussions, superior entertainment. We got to come up with some taglines. Superior entertainment. All right.
They should add modest.
Yeah. All right.
Curtis, that list would be interesting to look at.
Yeah, I've been trying to keep track of CoCo 1s, 2s, and 3s. So,
well, I think anybody who's trying to get a CoCo 3 is probably struggling with number one, finding the availability, and number two, finding the affordability. So
I think the latter is more important right now. You can find CoCo 3s on eBay, but they're $300, $400, $500 now just for a raw 128K, more than they cost in the first place. I think it's more the price
for
is the
$300
problem.
or $400.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's not so much rarity. It is. I see a lot more CoCo 2 listings than I do CoCo 3s, and from the serial numbers I've gone through, the CoCo 2 is sold at least 2.5 to 3 million itself, and that once again they could have restarted depending on country, whether it's NTC or PAL, etc. I don't know, but the prices of the CoCo 3s have gone through the roof. I think that's more the main thing. People want to get a CoCo 3, but are they willing to spend $400 for a 128K machine? They don't even know if it works. That's a different story.
Right.
Yeah, but most work.
So Mark says serial numbers are phony. They are not serial numbers.
Serial numbers were mostly phony, is what Mark Siegel was saying. So yeah, who the hell knows?
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a number. It's not serial. It's a number.
What I do find interesting, though, is we spend a fair amount of time discussing what these guys do on a monthly basis on our show.
Yeah, well, it's the same community, right? Well, mostly there's a lot of crossover on topics, etc. So,
well, I didn't complete the second part of that statement.
Oh, go ahead.
And I'm just saying, we mentioned what they do on their show on our show.
Yep, we do.
Okay.
We're the community.
Yes.
The community, the collaborative community that Bruce Moore talked about. That's where we come from.
And that's all I'm saying. I'm just saying that on our show, we mentioned what they do on their show.
I'm trying to promote the CoCo regardless, so it doesn't matter to me where the news is coming from. So,
and I just looked up on eBay. The only CoCo 3 that I can see is a 128K for $635.
Oh,
Canadian.
that's great! Sign me up for that. Is there a buy now button for that?
Yes, there is actually. It's not an auction. It's a buy now. $635.
Hey, Ken.
Yeah.
If you select on the searches completed auctions, you can get a general idea of what the last ones have sold.
I'm just saying what they're asking
currently
for them right now,
and what's currently available. Yeah.
Now, I will mention something they did mention when they were going through this discussion here, because they said actually that doesn't seem to be so rare, and they have found ones at decent prices, but they said eBay is not the place to look. They suggested going to more localized, like stuff like Kijiji up here in Canada.
Facebook Marketplace, things like that.
Yeah, Craigslist, whatever. Like if you get something that's local to your community or local within your area, you can probably find them at decent prices. The eBay seems to be like the people that really want to rook you for money.
Well, the thing is, on eBay, you'll go into advanced search, sold listings, and you'll sell it for whatever the last guy was able to get. And until nobody can get that for a while, it's going to have that artificial high price.
The value of something is what somebody's willing to pay. So while most of us here in the panel might not think a 128K CoCo 3 is worth $600, if somebody wants one bad enough and that's their only choice and they're willing to pay for it, well, then it was worth $600 to them to have it, So
one person in the millions on eBay bought one for $600, so now they're all worth $600 for a while.
Yeah.
Back in the 90s and the 2000s, when I would look for CoCos or whatever, I would notice that some people, maybe ladies, I don't know, but they would post the CoCo as being a keyboard and thinking they don't know what it plugs into, so they can't tell you if it works or not.
I've picked up a couple of VIC-20s that way.
Yeah.
For like really cheap. People are like
They're thinking
keyboard.
it's like a keyboard off a PC that plugs into something.
Yeah,
else.
keyboard for old computer.
Yeah,
that's a
right.
VIC 20. That is the computer.
Right.
All right.
Yeah, you couldn't say that about the Sinclair ZX81 because that's not really a keyboard. So the one thing I did want to point out that Dave and Sharon Berry, Dave 609 here in the chat mentioned that they're cheap in Montreal, and that's the one thing I wanted to mention that they kind of mentioned too is that it's also regional. Like there's certain places, like if you go into Quebec or Ontario, and Dave, if you want to quote what some of the prices you've seen lately are in Quebec, because I know Neil Blanchard mentioned that he's been able to find ones in Ontario that are way cheaper than the eBay ones in the States. So it also seems to be where you are, you can get them much cheaper. Because he said, yeah, he's found CoCo 3s there for like $120, $150. It's like modern, like now, not going back a year or two. So
I've been looking up on Marketplace, and they run about 300, 350.
Yeah, and Neil's been finding for like 120 Canadian.
Oh, I wish. Around
So,
here,
if you're in Ontario, apparently that's a good place to buy CoCo 3s right now. Or
a couple
Quebec,
of months
maybe.
ago, I was on an auction site here in Vancouver, and there was a CoCo 1, 2 Black Beauties, and 2 games, I think. Can't remember what they were. But it was up for auction, and I dropped out of the bidding at $150. And it ended up going up. I think it sold for $375 for a CoCo 1. They didn't even say whether it was 16K, 4K, what. It just...
Yeah. And yet Dave mentioned here, he just came up, he said right now CoCo 3s in Quebec, $125.
Oh, geez, I better send Dave some money to buy me some.
So now the New York Times CoCo 2 is going to come into its own pretty soon because it's
pretty soon the normal CoCo 2 is going to be up at that price, right? So.
Yeah. That's one of the reasons. Like we discussed this before about the fact that several people are working on replacement motherboards now for CoCo 2s and CoCo 3s. And then once these get done and they also have replacements for some of these rare chips, at least you can get something that functions exactly like one, but you hopefully won't have to pay these extravagant, collector's prices. You can actually just get a functional machine for the, a new circuit board with a new 609 and some new salt chip replacement, whatever else. And then you can actually just, get an affordable machine that is basically still the real hardware, even if it's using modern parts.
Yeah, Mr. Dave says if you buy something on Kijiji, which is like Craigslist, they're usually not going to ship, so it's got to be like a local pickup.
Yeah.
Right, so.
Well, during the podcast, Neil mentioned that he had just picked up a CoCo 3 when Ian Maverick of Australia actually had been up in Ontario last week in the Niagara Falls area. I can't remember if he was on their business. He mentioned that he was on the Trash Talk on this last weekend too, but they actually went and picked one up for quite cheap. But anyway, it seems to be Quebec and Ontario hotbeds for cheap CoCo.
Yeah.
So if you guys are looking for them, go up there.
I'm just so grateful that I have what I have. Like I have 2 CoCo 3s. I've got, I got a white CoCo 1, which is one of the things I wanted in my collection. I got a couple of CoCo 2s, so I have a spare. So I was able when I was buying CoCo 2s, you could get a 64K CoCo 2 on eBay for like $50-$60 on average, and you can get those. We were able to get those things every single day. I mean, there was a time where I had a stack of a dozen CoCo 2s in boxes, and I ended up selling off half the crap I had because I just had so many of them. I mean, those days aren't here anymore. But again, it's kind of supply and demand. And the value is in the eye of the beholder, and the perception of rarity or scarcity will affect that. And that's just like any market when you think about it. That could be real estate or bonds or trades or, stock market. So what is something worth? Well, it's what people think it's worth or what people are willing to pay for it is what it's worth. So value is so subjective and speculative,
Yep. And as Dave also mentioned, he has a Rocky Red CoCo 3 motherboard from Pedro Payne. So
yeah. And that's great that it's happening where if you have an old machine you need to bring to life, you can switch out the main board. But then we've got into the questions about when is it retro, when is it still CoCo? What happens if you get to the point now where you have to rebuild an entire CoCo from scratch from all new stock? So a new motherboard and a new power supply and
keyboard
and the chips are still the same type of chips, but you've now built the hardware, but you've built it with mostly 21st century parts. Is it still a retro machine? I mean, in my opinion, yeah, it's still a retro machine because it's running an 8-bit, 16-bit processor,
If it's running the old code, if
it's running the old processor and the old code, then yeah, it's still a retro machine. And that's true if it's still the silicon plastic 40-pin chip or if it's an FPGA version of that chip. If it's still running that, 8 16-bit CPU, it's still a vintage system.
And this is where we get into the collector versus actually being able to run something argument again, because collectors will want the original hardware.
Right.
But somebody that just wants a CoCo 3 that functions, they can run all the old games with the joysticks they're used to, the keyboard style they're used to. These newer replacements kind of cover that base and make them affordable, because it's, $1,400 for an eBay auction for a CoCo 3 is just ridiculous.
I would like to say something from 35 years ago.
Yeah.
WeFax.
WeFax. Oh, everybody take a drink. And Ron said WeFax. Take a drink. But yeah, so you can get a new CoCo 3 motherboard soon, thanks to Rocky Hill. You'll be able to get the Gimme X, which is the new
enhanced
Gimme, which also has an 8 meg board that comes with that. So you just need a handful of supporting chips, and you can have a brand new CoCo 3. Now, unfortunately, at new prices, you're still going to be looking at probably $300 to $400 for all the parts you need to put it together new.
That's still half of what some of the eBay ones are going for.
But that is going to be brand new.
Hardware.
Yeah, it's going to be brand new. You don't have to worry about old capacitors and things dying and sparks flying.
And you're getting enhancements. You're getting all the backwards compatible Gimme X stuff, but you're also getting, like you said, 8 meg and advanced graphics, etc., which it's an upgrade.
Right. And honestly, I would be okay with that. And I don't even need a 3D printed case to make it look like the old thing. Just give me a freaking USB keyboard and let me fire it up, and I'll be a happy guy. So I don't need the old plastic cases, because to me, a 3D printed case just throws the price point out the window. If you're looking at $100 for the shell it all goes in, and you already spent over $300 in parts for the guts, now
and we have 3D replacement cases now from like John Strong too. So.
Right, but that's what I'm saying. But you're looking at $100 for that case, easily. So I would rather just have it.
I wouldn't be surprised if that's the price of an empty shell case of the original on eBay these days.
Yeah, I would be happy with just the board that worked. And plug in
just
a USB
put it in an
keyboard.
old PC case.
Yeah, repack it.
Hey, that was the funny thing back in the '90s. That's what we all did.
Yeah.
We purposely got rid of that CoCo 3 case because we wanted our multi-pack in there. And
just go to the charity shop, pick up an old PC for like $15, and then
you could find like a really commonly available form factor like mini ITX case that has all the outputs in the back and make it fit in that case. And
that's highlight Ron. He's actually showing one of these.
Oh, look at that! Ron's got. Is that one of Paul Barton's?
Here, I'll stop sharing so you can show that for the people to see here who haven't seen these.
So Ron Delvaux showing off a CoCo repack right there. You got the floppies in the case and a ton of ribbon cables hanging down there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I put black on both sides top, and that was from
Taylor. Roger Taylor.
Roger Taylor. Okay, that was his CoCoZilla.
Yeah, and he got to sell it to
Paul Barton.
Paul, and I got it from Paul.
Wow.
Yep, and it works. It's up and running.
That's cool.
There was a ton of these back in the 90s. This was hugely popular because people wanted their hard drives, their multi-pack, R32 packs, XT keyboard adapters, everything. Like this one here has two 5 1/4 inch drives plus a 3.5 drive, which I'm assuming all work on the CoCo just fine. He's got an XT keyboard coming out. It still uses a CM8 or Magnavox monitor, so it's still CoCo compatible. But you don't have a multi-pack hanging off the side that you jiggle the table and it suddenly crashes because the pin slid over.
Yeah, the 3.5 drive isn't in there.
Was that Rick?
I was going to say, I sold one of those for about 15 minutes back in the day. CoCo repacks with the multi.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I forgot about that. You did. Well, a lot of people did back then. I mean, there was a ton of stuff. Everybody was trying to get away from the CoCo case and the multi-pack dangling off the side.
Wish I had all those cases back. Yeah, I could sell them now for all these guys that want to make their shipment.
The real problem would be when the older PC cases suddenly become rare and collectible, and all of a sudden those will shoot up, and then what are they going to do?
Right, because you kind of need that old XT power supply with the Molex connectors and stuff to fire up those floppy drives and everything.
You guys ever watch Linux or Linux? The guy's name is Linus. That's his
Torvalds?
name. Yeah. He made a. No, this is not the originator of Linux.
LTT. Yeah.
LTT. He had a show where he made a cardboard case and put a PC in it and had it work.
Oh.
Yeah. Pretty.
It's like the old wood grain ones, like the original.
You don't have to worry about anything shorting out on that cardboard case if you got a soldered joint touching the bottom, right? So
Frank Swigert, who did more than 6 to 8 micros, actually had a wooden case portable version of his with a battery on it to run his CoCo portably too. I don't know if he still has that or not, but
to tell you the truth, on the back of this machine. He used a block of wood and drilled, the 4 holes for the DIM receptacles. They're on there that way. It's screwed onto it's wood screwed onto the metal of the case.
Yep.
And it
There's
worked.
a lot of innovative, I'll say,
Yeah.
cases back in the day. Anyway, it's an interesting topic to discuss there. And I mean, we all have seen the prices have gone through the roof the last couple of years, and it's nice to see that we do have some alternatives that, potentially could get the prices back down if you just want compatible hardware to run this stuff on.
And another good excuse to come to CoCo Fest and try to get one in the auction for less than eBay prices and support
Exactly.
Glenside.
Yeah, exactly.
I think Sloopy got one for $20 last year. Son of a bitch.
Yep.
So
yeah, that turned a few heads.
Jason got one for $5. All he had to do was get the soap powder out of it at VCF Midwest, So there are
Actually,
deals.
one thing, go ahead.
Go ahead. So there are deals to be found. So
Yeah, I was just going to mention one of the things that Neil and the CoCo crew mentioned during their discussion is that they had somebody that they knew that was giving a CoCo 3 away. He was just going to say, whoever wants it, come get it. And fully working, tested.
Right.
So, I mean, if you know the right people and if you're in the right, regional areas, I guess it is
and what's probably not being talked about are the people who are hoarding. And, that's okay. If you're a massive collector and you've got lots of units, that's fine. There's no crime. Again, no wrong way to CoCo. But, the people who are hoarding are contributing to the scarcity and rarity and perceived value of what is available in the wild, so.
Yeah, I have to agree with that. That's why I've limited myself to 2 CoCo 3s. I got one with the Gimme X, one with the older style Gimme, just for testing compatibility-wise. Kind of need that, but I don't have any plans to, unless one of them dies or something. I don't plan on getting any more because I want other people to be able to experience it.
Okay. OG Hugo says he has a CoCo 2 he wants to donate. Yeah, reach out to Glenside. Just go to glensideccc.com, and they will take donations for the auction. They'll even pay for shipping if you can't make it to CoCo Fest, where they can have you ship something to them for the auction. So if you want to donate it, I'd say donate it to Glenside. Be the best place to go there. All right, so what are we going to see about Erico? What's Erico doing here, Curtis?
Well, Erico, and there's not too much of an update. He just said he's basically getting back into a coding project that he'd been working on. He's got a little screenshot of it here. And it's not really an update that explains what the project is he's working on, but he said something here that has hit me so many times the last few years. Trying to remember all variable relationships. Yeah, right. There goes a couple of days inserting it all back in the brain again. A reminder to never pause a project in the middle of a hard logic stage.
Yeah.
And I hit this all the damn time. So I got busy with work for about 5 weeks straight. Didn't touch Petsky. It's taken me several days to kind of remember where the hell I was going with it, what I was doing. I'm going to be hitting that with Nitrous 9 again right away here too. The Nitrous 9 manual project, my Liberation game, like this just keeps happening over and over and over. So I definitely sympathize with this, as did some of the commenters. And I'm sure you've hit that yourself, Stevie, when you...
Yeah, but the only thing I did, is rather than doing an actual paper notebook, which I know some people do, they write, I just did a notepad. So I have my source code is in a text file and a notepad, and all my comments, I keep my comments of all my variable names in routine areas. I just write up a little text file document in longhand explaining what everything does. And that's the only way I was able to go back to Cosmic Aliens after a 1.5-year hiatus, was I had it wasn't like inline documentation because it's basic, but I had a separate companion file. And I'm doing, and so that's just, I've only done 2 or 3 projects, in the past 4 or 5 years since I got back into it. And that's just been my method.
But it's just something that hit home with me because I've got so many projects on the go, and then I don't know my work schedule at all. It's basically just random when stuff comes in. So, I'll get one job in and go, okay, well, I'll take get this job down, take me 2 days, and I'll be back in the project, and it's still fresh in my mind. Then a bunch of other stuff comes in. Then it's like a month and a half later, I'm trying to get back to it. And even with written notes, I still have to re-go through the code because I might have been right in the literal middle of changing something, so the notes aren't accurate. Or whatever,
right.
It's just a schmozzy mess.
And so I'm trying to see. Well, I can't figure out what editor he's using there, but you can see the syntax highlighting there, which is one nice thing about using a development editor versus just a normal notepad. It's kind of hard to see what that is, but when
it's using Atom, it looks like Atom's an editor.
Okay, yeah.
The Atom editor, which also has a CoCo Basic highlighting syntax available.
Okay. Cool.
And then, like you said, notepad notes here on what some of this stuff does.
Yeah. That's how I had to do it.
Well, my previous employer, there was an official, I'm getting my head around it, which means no one can interrupt you for 4 hours because now you've loaded up all your short-term variables in your brain.
Right.
And you can write for a couple hours. And if anyone interrupts you, all that stuff just falls on the floor and it's done.
Yep.
You take another half hour to get started.
I'm very familiar with that. That's sort of like short-term Alzheimer's.
Right. And don't make me spill my brain milk, okay? So something that developers can relate to, right? Forgetting what.
Oh yeah, big time. And whether you're an assembly language developer, a C developer, a basic developer, it's the same.
Struggle is
you
real.
get interrupted. You try to come back to it later on, like days or weeks later.
I notice he's got a lot of shorthand in there. He's got the question mark at. He's also using some hex codes, so and H, which does speed certain things up. So I can see a lot of the optimizations and shorthand he's got in his source code listing there.
Yeah, and then he's got the CoCo emulator running the same code up in the corner there.
Yeah.
So. Next up, Sheldon McDonald posted on the Facebook group, the CoCo Facebook group, that he has gotten his Sega Genesis gamepads working with the CoCo PSG, which is Ed Snyder's. It's a sound and joystick card, and he's actually got it supporting up to all 8 buttons at once here. So he's been kind of fiddling with it. These are little assembly language routines to be able to read all this stuff. So it's not something you can extend BASIC to, but you could run these little machine language bits. And I think some people in the Discord have actually gotten some of the code from him to test back and forth, and they're kind of tweaking it or whatever.
That's cool.
But that means we'll have a low-level driver people can then add to their own basic programs that they can run to support. If somebody has a PSG and a control with more than 2 buttons, they can actually get up to an 8-button CoCo game natively.
That's neat.
Cool.
And that was one of the original things that the John Linville Sega joypad adapter did offer. Part of it was read through the joystick port, and part of it was read through the serial port, where you could get all the buttons from 2 sets of Sega controllers.
Yeah, and I think I don't have a PSG, so I don't know for sure, but the PSG, I believe, has its own little hardware and a separate connector for these or something.
It has, that's digital joystick interface, so it's got like 2 Atari-style connections built into the card.
But it plugs in the cartridge slot and the ports come off that.
Yeah.
The chip he uses for sound has 2 8-bit ports, and so it just it hooks to the 2 DE9 connectors. So you can just write code. I know that actually David Ladd actually wrote some code a couple of years ago when it first came out to try to read the Sega type pads.
Okay. Next up, we have from Barry Nelson. This is going back to the topic we were talking about earlier about doing forks of the main code, because Barry basically released his own private fork here, which fixes sound in the CoCo 3 games like Rampage and Ark, and he also did some fixes for the Tier City Model 4 emulation to boot Model 4 discs. And this is where Stevie got a discussion with him about why not keep this in the main branch. I'm kind of in between on the two because the problem with MAME, I mean, you can put your updates in to get the main branch. That is the ideal thing, to get it so that it's fixed everywhere. But the problem is that somebody else will come in later on a completely different system that say uses the VDG chip. There's the laser Z300 or whatever the heck, use the VDG chip, for example. Let's do something to fix that particular machine, not realizing that the way they implemented the fix is going to screw up something else. And because, as you said before, Steve, there's so many cooks stirring the pot here that people are breaking each other's stuff constantly. So I kind of with Barry at least somewhat on this of like make your own stable branch. It's a slightly older version of MAME. It won't have all the newest cards. It would have like the Super Sprite FM Plus board and all this kind of stuff is not supporting this, but it works and it's not going to break on the next update. So I kind of understand where he's coming from, but eventually you should put those back into the main thing. It's kind of like we're doing with 90s of Use, where once we have stuff stable, we send it back to the repository.
Yeah, there's a problem though that if you've seen the MAME dev community in action, a lot of times any change that you want to make to a given emulated computer also faces a huge uphill battle with gatekeepers who don't want any particular change to be made. And it doesn't matter how justified the change might be, how much of a case you make, there's people's opinions that just, I don't like the way you coded it, or I just don't feel like that should be made, and then boom, it just sits there dead. So maintaining your own fork does have the advantage of being, king of your own kingdom, in that when you want the change to get made, you can at least be sure it'll get made, rather than having to fight that uphill battle. I just some of the stuff that I've seen over the years in the MAME dev community, you just kind of shake your head and wonder, why do some of these people even do this stuff? So who knows?
Yeah, I mean, that's the problem. The MAME dev community, there's so many people working on MAME now that it's a bureaucracy. And you get all the entrails of bureaucracy in there, like all the delays and the red tape and gatekeepers and blah, blah, blah. There's a whole whackload of stuff that gets in there. So like I said, I understand why Barry did it this way, because at least he knows they're not going to break his code. He knows his code is stable. But I'm like Stevie said, for the new user coming in, they don't know any of this. They don't know all the politics of it. And they're going, well, I download this. This works great. The next version comes out. Oh, right, this has got updates. Wait, this doesn't work anymore.
Yeah, it's a moving target. There's not a perfect answer, but you know, I think you guys have raised arguments for both sides of that thing, right? The for and against. I was not aware of the behind the scenes process, because I'm lucky to be spoiled by knowing a person named Tim Lindner, and I don't know what Tim has to go through or what he does, but I just know that he is like he's our champion, and he typically makes things happen. So I don't doubt that bureaucracy is there, but I have not heard it from Tim that he's ever had a hard time getting something pushed, because he is not, on the outside. He's inside the loop, I think. But
yeah, Tim and Bernard both do great jobs on the CoCo and Dragon side of things, and I think that after you've paid your dues and you know enough people that it becomes kind of de rigueur, and you don't notice that you're going through any particular hassle. It's just what you do. It's the frustration.
Once they're familiar enough with you to be quote unquote comfortable with your coding style that it fits theirs or whatever, then I think you can get through faster. I think is what I understood.
Yeah.
And I mean, honestly, Tim, he's been doing a lot of MAME updates and stuff lately, and I think all the trying to get people to approve stuff he submitted and stuff, he hasn't had time for a haircut in quite a while. Kind of
But yeah, so the ideal pie in the sky thing would be, if we're going to fix things and we're going to patch things and correct things, let's just fix the main version so everybody benefits. That's the perfect result. But in the real world, you can't always do what seems to be the best thing for everyone. So so what he's doing is great, and I think my only concern is that, hey, if you don't know about this, whatever. For me, I've never run into a MAME situation where something hasn't worked for me. But I'm not doing weird. I'm not doing weird stuff. I'm just trying to run a cartridge or a floppy disk or something like that. I'm not trying to do a lot of crazy bleeding edge stuff. I just want to play a game, and I've never really run into too many problems just playing most games in MAME. So I guess your mileage varies there. I will once again say I continue to be impressed with XRoar. I always liked XRoar when it was just CoCo 1, 2, and Dragon, but now that it's doing CoCo 3 and it's doing MC10.
And online.
Online. And I've asked this question years ago. We got so many different people. We have some people working on MAME. We have some people working on VCC, and then there's an OVCC, and then there's an XRoar. You have all these efforts and all these things happening in different places. Again, this is the idealistic pie in the sky. What if we all just focused on one thing and made that the best it could be? It's a great concept, but again, real world, is that possible?
I think because the concept of what the best it can be differs between people.
Yeah.
That you'll never get a complete.
Well, how about just being hardware accurate, cycle accurate, or anything you can do on real hardware you can do on the emulator? That should be the goal, right? The idea of the emulator is to do exactly what the hardware does. It shouldn't do anything.
I think like MAME and XRoar do that now. It's just like, what hardware are you supporting? What development environment? What option flags are you allowing you to set from the command line? Or what ones are you setting from within? And
the thing about that everybody should pitch into one is that you're welcome to. Most of these things are open source projects. Patches welcome.
Right. Well, XRoar, I don't think XRoar is open source and you don't have to pay for it, but I don't think anybody can work on XRoar, can they? Or could you take the source code and make your own fork of XRoar?
Come up with whatever you like.
I mean, I don't think Karen has other people chip in on the development of it, though. It's not like there's a team working on XRoar, right? It's kind of his baby.
Actually, he's asked for help on the user interface side.
Oh, okay. Okay, he has. Okay. Gotcha. Yeah, I know, and no matter what, you could have 3 of the best emulators that were completely perfect and did everything right, and then there's still going to be people that are going to pick one over the other, and there's going to be, they're going to.
It could be just what you're familiar with, like the first one you use, and go, I'm used to this. I don't want to learn new keys.
And my emulator's better than your emulator, and my emulator's dad can beat up your dad, and you're going to get all that kind of stuff too.
Well,
so.
And somebody might want to write an emulator to just know how to do that. So then you end up with yet another one just because somebody wanted to learn.
Yeah, proof of concept. Can I make an emulator?
Yeah.
Yeah,
interesting topic. Never be solved.
No. But I'm just going to say it again. I'm becoming more and more of a fan of XROAR. Plug for Karen.
I mean, XROAR is rapidly becoming my favorite too. There's a few minor changes I would make. One on the Mac, it does weird things with sound on occasion. I'm not sure if that's on the other platforms as well. I haven't tried it. And he needs to add more stuff to the GUI that you can access that don't have to be accessed with the command line for the people that don't want to have to learn command
And I think that might be where he's asking for help.
For help, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. One man can only do so much.
Yep. This next story here is a follow-up. So we covered the Backbit Pro cartridge probably a month or 2 ago from Evie's review. And this is a hardware cartridge that actually has interchangeable connectors, so you can plug the same base cartridge into a ColecoVision, an Atari 8-bit, and an Apple II, and a CoCo, and whatever.
Now, does this cartridge require the deluxe joystick to be upside down in order for it to work properly?
I'll explain that in a bit.
Okay.
So basically, she did this cartridge, but she thought that the CoCo was basically cartridge-based games and some cassette games, probably looking through a catalog, and didn't think there was that much for disc, not realizing that almost all of us use disk drive. So I actually gave her a comment, pointed to the archive. So she said, I had no idea. So she actually has gone through the last month and a half, and now added full disk support, read and write disk style images, compatible with the stuff you get off the archive. So she actually goes through and does kind of a review of this.
Hey, what's up, and welcome to another episode of Evie's Review. So, what you see here...
So I'll just pause there so you can kind of see what the support is now for the various machines now, and you'll see that the Tandy Color Computer 2 and 3 mounts cartridges, level 2 loads programs, full disk support was not supported at first, and that has since changed.
A list of adapters for the Backbit Pro cartridge, and a list of the supported features. Now, I've just made one improvement. You can see that I've added full disk support for the Tandy Color Computer 2 and 3. And so the game you're seeing here, this is Puyon.
Better sound chip on that version of Puyon.
Yeah, that's interesting, eh?
Oh, and Kevin Holloway's pointing out that the PC Junior is being used as a monitor stand. So
good use for it.
There was no MC10 around, so.
Anyway, here you can see the interface. It's kind of like a poor man's CoCo SDC.
Right, it's kind of like a GoTech style thing here. Okay, Seamus, Tandy.
Yeah, but you can see that she's got a lot of the disk images now that she didn't even know existed before for testing and stuff now. Now, unfortunately, her CoCo 3 that she's using this on does not even have 512K, so she can't play. Like, she wanted to try the Sierra games, for example, and she just physically can't until she gets the upgrade. But now, the joystick, I can't remember where she explained this. Seamus. Yeah, here.
PC. Oh, so it's a PC Junior stick.
And so that way, this joystick can support the Tandy, the Apple II, and so that way, this are connected to ground on one side. Controls if the other switch, if the buttons are. One switch controls if the buttons are activated high or low. And then the other switch controls if the potentiometers are connected to ground on one side. And so that way this joystick can support the Tandy, the Apple II, and the PC Junior with the right adapters, of course. Now, Backbit supports full reading and writing of pretty much all files on the Tandy disk format.
Anyway, I just wanted to, because she's got a couple switches added to that joystick, so it'll work on these various machines, but because of some of the differences, it actually plays backwards. I mean, Rick, you probably know more about the technicalities of what she's talking about there with the various way the button switches work, the way the pots work, etc.
Yeah, it's funny. They put all the signals in there and then didn't use them on PC. So, yeah, add a couple switches, you can do all kinds of things.
Yeah, because what you've been doing is you've been taking PC-based joysticks and fixing them to work on a CoCo native, but they no longer work on the PC, correct?
Right, because
where she's tried to kind of hack it so it works on all these machines, though you have to hold it upside down if it's this machine and all these other weird things.
Well, there's the connector issue. So in my case,
I guess you could make a little like she's making her SD card reader here, so it has different plugs for the different cartridge slots. You probably could do a multi-ended cable or a converter cable connector thingy to actually handle a few of the different formats there too. I don't know how many there are.
But we should do it the right way and make an adapter so the correct CoCo wiring fits the PC Junior.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, for those that were interested in this product before we showed it, but we're kind of missing the fact that there's no disk support, just cassette. That has been solved. It does reading and writing. It works with disk images, the DSK format that we've used on emulators and on the CoCo SDC. So that opens that up. And if you have multiple retro platforms, including all the ones that were on that list earlier on in the video, if you have any of these other ones, you can get the one card solution, and then you just have to swap get the the connectors, the card edge connectors that fit that particular slot, and you can reuse the same hardware, so you don't have to buy multiple ones of these for each of your different systems. So if you're on a budget,
that's nice. And a lot of us do own more than one retro system, so this is one ring to rule them all, right? So it's kind of like a GoTech, Castuino, SDC, all in one.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Nice.
It's a beauty.
Yep.
Although I do feel it has distorted the hobby a little bit, so I do take I do take some umbrage with it. So, cool.
Yep. Next up, this is also a revisited video. So we showed, I think, 1 or 2 weeks ago, there was a guy that had gotten a CoCo 2 condition on, well, actually saying it was not functional. And then he tried swapping some RAM around and stuff, and then just couldn't quite figure out what was going on. So this is the follow-up where he actually does figure it out. And it did turn out to be bad RAM. There was a stuck bit on one of the RAMs staying on all the time in the upper range of the byte.
I find a little WD-40 usually loosens those bits up. So.
Well, the fun thing for me here, because I'm not a hardware guy, I don't even know what a logic analyzer technically does. This is the first time I've actually seen one that actually understood exactly what it's doing here, because that's actually tracing the 6809 CPU to say what address is it currently at, what byte is it reading, what is it executing, and they actually got the Color Basic Unraveled book from Spectral, and he shows like little clips of the code it's running through, so you can figure out exactly where it's going. And they also found out, like at the beginning of the video, now Rick, you'll have to correct me because I can't remember which way is which, but the clocks are supposed to be for RAM refresh, or RAM reading is on the rising edge or the trailing edge?
The CoCo is always backwards, so probably the trailing edge.
Okay, because he did it the wrong way at first, and he did like a jump to subroutine in the ROM to clear the screen, like the 32 column screen, and it returned with completely wrong addresses on the bus. And then he figured out later in the video that problem that we just mentioned there is that was doing it the wrong way, so he wasn't giving it enough time to actually settle the address on the bus. So he actually did figure that out afterwards, and that's when he finally discovered this stuck bit, because he was trying to return to an address based on what it's pulling off the stack, but the values had changed. That one bit got stuck on when it wasn't supposed to be, so it was just crashing on some random thing. So long story short, it's a 20-minute video, and like I said, it was quite interesting. I've never really fiddled with an analyzer, because this actually would be a pretty decent thing for debugging machine language code if you didn't have like the MAME emulator type thing.
I was going to say, it almost sounds like the debugger for real hardware.
Yeah, exactly. And you can like pause it, you can single step through it, you can do all kinds of things on here, so it's pretty cool. I should actually show you earlier in the video, he showed the mess of cables that's required to hook all this up, though. That would scare the hell out of me.
Yep, that's about right.
Yeah, tying all 40 pins and then snaking all over the place into the plugin to go into your analyzer.
The extent you have to go to in order to get the data.
It's like going to the hospital, have like an EEG, an EKG, an MRI, all this stuff going on.
And the machine that goes ping.
Yeah, right.
And then you get all this hooked up and realize, oh yeah, I've got to hit enter to start the program.
Actually, that did hit him too. Because he had taken the keyboard out already. Anyway, long story short, he figured out which RAM was bad. He replaced it. It works fine now. So
that's cool.
But that shows if somebody wants to learn, if they have an logic analyzer and they want to learn how to debug these kind of things, he actually goes step by step, including his own mistakes, which he did on the first video too. So it's pretty good, because it shows you how to learn what you're doing, not just here's the correct way of doing it.
Right.
And you don't really understand the process. Now you will.
Roger that. Very cool.
Quite good. Next up, this is a channel I've not seen before. Now, this was originally live streamed on his Twitch channel, and now he's got the YouTube version of it up. And this is Tech Tangents 2. I'm not even sure exactly what the channel's entirely about. There seems to be some retro and some more modern stuff mixed. The basic premise of this one is he picked up an old Hitachi color TV. He went to a Goodwill. He was, because he occasionally goes to buy stuff, and this old CRT TV from 1985 assumed to be working. And they said, we can't sell this. You want it for free? And he went, sure. And he took it back home. And then he decided one of the machines he was going to test it with was a CoCo 1. Now, this is the 64K color computer from 1983 in the fall, which is the rarer of the ones there because it was only out for a brief bit for the CoCo 2 kind of took it over. So this is the full-size white case CoCo 1 with the melted keyboard.
Yep.
And
I had that machine, and I have it again now. Love it. That's my CoCo VGA machine right there. Are you going to plug it in, eh?
He's a bit dramatic, I will say.
See. Aren't there just basically 3 or 4 cell phone providers use their own towers and everyone else is using those towers?
And he pays attention to live chat, which is kind of cool. And then here he's kind of fiddling with the tint and the brightness and contrast. Now, one thing you might have experienced this too, Stevie, is that his camera captures it, and it looks crappy, like you got all the snow on the sides, etc. He said it doesn't look that bad in real life, and then if he really dims it down so you can't barely see it in person, it shows up fine in the camera. Is that something you've experienced trying to film a screen?
I don't typically film screens, so
okay.
Or at least CRTs. Anyways, I've had trouble trying to get CRTs. Okay, like right now in that still that you just paused, that looks really good there.
That's because he dimmed it way the hell down.
Okay.
You can barely see it on
yeah,
screen.
but like so, like
now.
right now, if you look at the it's not a CRT, but I've got a flat panel behind me, and it's just how the camera perceives light from a distance versus the foreground and background and stuff like that. So, I don't know the science behind how cameras see things, especially things that have their own light source and stuff like that. But I know, like right now, if I duck my head, you see the screen behind me looks kind of blurry. But if I zoom the camera in on that screen and there's no surrounding light, then the camera can focus in on those colors and you see them sharper. So I think it's kind of relative to the surrounding ambient light how it can see a screen. This is my uneducated guess.
And that goes for focus too. Like the Taylor and Amy show, the video they did this week was installing a composite mod basically for the Odyssey 2, the Magnavox Odyssey 2. And they were showing the little board thing, and they would hold it up right in front of the camera. Of course, it focuses it on them way behind, so it's a big blurry mess. And the trick they use is they put their hand behind it to kind of block the background, and then suddenly the camera laser sharp focuses.
Right. I've had to do that too, and that's because the camera's on autofocus, and when it's on autofocus, it doesn't really know what we want it to see. Or if you like, I'm right now on my webcam, and I've turned off autofocus for that very reason. Because remember before, when I was on Zoom, my face would blur out because it might be something brighter behind me that the camera thinks, oh, I need to focus on that. Yeah. So your cameras can kind of get ADD with light sources, and if you set it to manual focus, you can really force what it's going to see.
Yeah. Anyway, I like this setup. I like the fact he used one of the rarer CoCo 1s.
Yeah.
He's actually got a little camera that you can kind of see on the left there, right below the mic, that is on a retractable arm that he can focus right up to his screen,
kind of
right
pointing
to the
down.
hardware.
Yeah. I did something similar to this on a thing we did from looking at my Tandy 1000. I haven't published that video, but I like that whole idea of the multiple cameras.
Yeah, so it's cool. And he does a bunch of other retro stuff. This show, the first half is going through this TV and figuring out. Now, one thing they mentioned, some people in the chat and him mentioned as well. He was surprised because, basically the VHF frequency, there's no TV on that anymore. So he was surprised that he was still getting a fair bit of interference. And then some people mentioned a lot of the cell phone tower stuff, 4G and 5G, is now using those old bandwidths that the VHF used to use.
Interesting.
And that they think that's why you're still getting, a lot of distortion and noise in the signal. Now, for you hardware gurus that know this stuff a lot better than I do, does that sound legit?
Channel 3 and 4 are a multiple of the CoCo's clock, so it's a very bad place to put a computer signal. Channel 3 and 4 are just wrong. Anywhere else it would be clean.
But originally, I remember when they shut down analog TV, people said that their screens got better because now all the interference from TV signals was gone. But now that all the newer towers for cell phones are reusing those signals, it sounds like the problem's coming back.
No, because the new cell phone stuff is up in the 600 megahertz range. So
okay, so they're wrong. Whoever mentioned that.
Well, yeah, UHF used to go pretty high, like what, channel 83, and so like the 700 megahertz range got reassigned to various things like cell phones, and then the last one a couple of years ago was 600 megahertz because I've had to work with places with audio equipment that was in the wrong range. We had to get rid of it and get stuff at a lower frequency. So yeah, and then but say UHF or VHF, your channels 2 through 6 and then 7 through 13, they're still being used, but when they went digital, they basically compressed more data into the same bandwidth, and that's why you can get 4 HD channels in that same range that was one analog channel.
Yeah, but now the newer HD ones, they're much more limited on range, though. Like you can't broadcast as far as the old.
Actually, they should be more tolerant because they're digital now. When my ex-wife first moved into her house 10 years ago, I had noticed it was really weird that her TV, like some of the channels didn't work. And then I realized, oh, only the analog portions didn't. So it's like the analog.
See, I had the opposite problem here. The analog ones still worked when they did the simulcast, but the digital ones, I had to get the right day with the right phase of the moon to get it to come in. Because if you lose any data on the digital signal, because it's all compressed, it just disappears.
Actually, there's a threshold, because what I found is that all the analog channels were really fuzzy, snowy, but all the digital ones were excellent. I realized the cable in the back of the TV wasn't tight. After I tightened it down, then the analog ones worked again. So obviously the digital has some sort of threshold that can accept a certain amount of signal loss and still be able to decode it.
Because most people I've talked to that live in like say San Francisco or something like that, they can go out like 20 miles and then they lose all digital, but they can go out like 60 miles and still get analog. It might get a little bit fuzzy, but at least you can still pick something up. So.
Yeah.
And that's cool though.
Yeah, that was an interesting one and a channel I've never seen before. So next up, we're talking about cross-platform development like the AGD session. This is an alternative to that. Fabrizio Caruso we've covered before because he's got his own internal cross library that he's got that's basically almost like a text character cell based type thing, and he's got it for I think 30 plus platforms himself. And he was trying to figure out how to do sound properly for the MC10 because he's actually adding MC10 support to his engine so he can get some of those games ported over too. And he had posted a question about, well, how do I get this to work properly for what he wanted to do? And then he actually got some help from people like Greg Dion and others. And he's got that problem solved. So that's now implemented into his library. I think this is also a universally free, feel free to access and write your own stuff in it too. And it's kind of C-based too, I believe. So now there's a couple of cross-platform engines. There's the one from the Japanese guys, and there's also the one here from Fabrizio. And I know he's released a few games. We covered these like in the last couple of years on the CoCo side of things, but now it looks like there's some MC10 stuff will be coming down the pike too. So MC10 is getting some more, semi-compiled love here for games and stuff.
Yay, MC10.
Now, this is to follow up. I think Alan had mentioned this too, but the Japanese engine, I can't remember how to pronounce it, but anyway, in Inufuto, this is kind of some specs on it, and you can go onto their GitHub, and they've got source code for all this stuff. The different CPUs you can see they support Z80, 6800, 689, 6502. There's different graphics chip they support, etc. And what's different with C? So this is kind of like CMOC. It's mostly C, but it's a little bit different in certain spots. And then they kind of go through some other stuff, and you go to the actual GitHub. Now, Alan, I think you've probably looked at this through a lot more than I have. Is there any particular things that really stuck out at you that you would want to mention?
He's got a tools page there on the Inufuto site as well that has some additional no, not on the GitHub. So there's a tools page that has that, and I posted the link in the chat earlier, but it had some things like diagrams for the Kate compiler and things like that. So yeah, there's more of this is coming to light, but that Atari Age thread really did kind of bring it all out to the front. It's great stuff.
Yeah, because we were kind of speculating wildly, like where all this stuff had suddenly come from, and it sounds like it's been there for a while, and it's public. You can go in and fiddle with it yourself too. So anyway, lots of opportunities for game developers here. Anyway, and you mentioned DinoSprite. That's a CoCo 3 graphics and sound library too that we've shown on the show before.
Yeah, DinoSprite.
Yeah, DinoSprite, no doubt.
Yeah. So, and that one Space Invader game we did that
Jamie
one,
Cho.
Jamie Cho,
yeah.
was done using that library. Now onto a little bit of Dragon related stuff. So Julian Brown posted he's been working on these RAM upgrade cards, kind of like daughter cards for the Dragon 32. and he just got a second batch of boards here. He's figured out he's probably got a couple more minor tweaks, but it's pretty well getting close to working. One nice thing about these is that it doesn't require just the 4164 chips the original one used. This will allow you to use different kinds of chips. You can just mix and match, or not mix and match, but pick what kind you want. Like this will support 4164s, 4126s, which are a bit more common because they came in the original IBM PCs. So basically, it gives you some options of using different chips to do the same RAM upgrade that is compatible. So this is his second batch of boards here. Just to zoom it up a little bit. Like I said, he's got a few little tweaks he wants to do before he goes to final manufacturing, but it'll give you more options for getting RAM. You don't have to find, just get the 4164s, which are getting a little bit more rare to find these days, especially if you want, fairly new ones or guaranteed ones type thing. So.
Is there a picture of the bottom of that? I'm just wondering how that taps in. Is it just like just socket into?
Unfortunately, this is the only picture he's got in this particular post. So I'm imagining once he gets the final version,
I'm kind of imagining that little thing on the edge there would be what goes down into the motherboard, and this is a riser above that, and you just put all the chips into this, and maybe it feeds it into the system through that. I'm not sure how the actual data is getting its way back to the system board.
Yeah, I can't remember his older photos that we showed when he first started prototyping this. If that actually had that in there, but I'll keep following up with him on this because he's
that has has a higher pin density. It seems like there too on the edge. So not sure though.
Yeah, and some of that might be due to the alternate RAM chips. Maybe you just need one 4126. You plop it in, that's the whole thing, or something. I'm not sure how that exactly works. I'm kind of waiting for his final version because he does plan to actually sell a few of these in the future and then release, how to make it. And then the last Dragon one here. This is an update from John Whitworth recreate the Dragon Professional, the dual CPU MMU based OS 9 level 2. The monster machine they were working on had prototypes done. And he's been recreating the motherboard. He's been, doing fixes. There were some issues on the original motherboard. Certain things actually did not work that he had to tweak. So he's got some photos of various things here. Him and a couple people, Phil Harvey Smith's also greatly involved in this. In fact, I think Phil has gotten a bunch of add-on card boards redone from the original, including a PS, and some new ones too, a PS2 to Dragon Beta keyboard interface. You can use a PS2 keyboard on it. Static RAM replacement board, 26 to 34 watt floppy interface board, and a 512K expansion card. But I thought I'd just show it, like right now he doesn't have a keyboard plugged into it in this case here. He just was trying to get the main board going. So this is running through the boot ROM, booting OS 9 level 2 from the prototype, or the new prototype of the Dragon Professional.
OS 9 is loading. Woohoo! Dun, 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 dun. Ooh, listen to that sound. Chuk, 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 chuk. Almost sounds like a heavy metal song of floppy drive going chuk, 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 chuk.
This is a Dragon 128 version of the OS 9 booting, but so this isn't the OS 9 that supports the multi CPUs and stuff yet, but it's enough to get it up and running. And it kicked into 80 column.
Now, is this Y2K compliant?
Probably not. I know we had to patch.
That is
this
so
would have
cool.
been like 1984, so probably not at that point.
1983, what it says on the copyright there.
Since he didn't have a keyboard, he actually just ended up, hitting reset.
So this is the Dragon Beta board that's now booting?
Yes.
Okay, that's cool.
Yep, and he's got some pictures, I think, down here because they've been working on getting some other stuff, and he actually got it up and running here using a primitive keyboard. He kind of hacked into it, so here he's actually booted up, typed in the date, then an M-free showing that he's got basically a 204K system here. Yeah, another one. Doing a DIR, doing an MDIR, and stuff like that. So it's and these here are the original copies of the files from the Dragon Professionals beta discs they use internally at Dragon. So you can see the dates they were last working on it. And Dragon
83 and 84. Wow.
Yeah, June of '84 is when the Dragon Data basically shut down. So these were done right up to the last minute.
Up to the last minute they were working on this.
Yeah. Which shows you how quick and sudden the whole shutdown happened.
Yeah.
So a little bit of history there too. And he has a comment here on the right. He said, mind you, the boot ROM has a date of a couple weeks later. So it's June 15th. That's what was written on the
84.
last flashed ROM for the boot. So.
Yeah. What is that all about? And by the way,
it's good to see he's got it up and running. You can type, like the standard OS 9 Level 2 is running. It's not the multi-CPU version of it yet or anything, but it's showing the hardware is booting properly.
Yeah.
It's talking to the serial port properly. It's talking to the keyboard properly, etc. So really cool to see. And that's it for the news today.
Get a drink, Curtis. Get a drink. So we've had multiple David Ladd sightings. He showed up in the panel. He showed up as David Ladd and Paco Atacte in the chat. So everybody, let's say hi to David Ladd. Hi, David.
Hey, Dave.
Good day, everyone.
Ooh, David Ladd is here, everybody.
Oh, Dave.
Sorry,
David,
I'm late. I didn't fall asleep until 8 a.m. So.
But you got in here early enough to hear the floppy drives going on that last story?
Oh yes, actually, I happened to start to review the show when I was getting up when you was talking about MAME. So yes.
Welcome, David. Always a pleasure to have you. Kevin said,
"Are you sure about that?"
Yes, and Kevin Holloway had said hi to you from the chat when you first popped into the panel too. So, and now he's saying it again. Kevin Holloway saying hi, David.
Yeah, he's across the river from me.
So we talked about CoCoFest earlier. Are you planning on and will potentially be at CoCoFest, David?
I'm planning on it.
Okay.
Heaven forbid anything keeps me from going.
Heaven forbid. Well, that should drive up the ticket prices right there. Just knowing that David Ladd will be there, really pack the place in.
A real celebrity in our midst.
That's right. Oh yeah.
I don't know what you're talking about. I'm a nobody.
You're somebody, David.
Modest celebrity in our midst.
That's it. Oh, all right. Well, good show. Good show, everybody. We managed to get this thing done in just about 3 hours. Not bad. And we did lots of divergence and pontifications and went down a few tangents and a couple rabbit holes and managed to find our way back. And
I do have one little pre-announcement to do. The dates aren't firm yet, but it looks like we're going to have Terry Steen on in the last half of April. He's going to actually be showing some stuff that never got released, or will be showing anyway, some stuff that never got released that was partly done, including his very first CoCo 3 game he was working on, and some utilities and stuff too that we haven't seen before. So look forward to that.
Yeah, I mean, so at last CoCo Fest, so Terry Steen had just a bunch of CoCos set up on multiple TVs, and then he had a CoCo Pi set up, and then there was a time where we just kind of sat down and it was just him and me, and he was kind of going through all the different games that he played, talking about them, and we were playing them together. He's got one that's kind of like the Outlaw with the two guys, and you shoot at each other. Yep. He's done so many games. I mean, I know we talk about people like, Steve Bjork and Dave Dyes and people like that are prolific, but, I mean, this guy did, not the same level, but, a good half a dozen to almost a dozen different games.
There's 6 CoCo 1 and 2 games that are already on my site. I finally put the last one up last week, and he also had started his first CoCo 3 games, which was a clone of Defender that didn't quite get completed, but is playable.
Okay.
So I'll be showing that too. And then he's done some utilities like directory sorting for Disk Basic and some other stuff. I have to talk to him about. I'm not even sure what they do yet. So.
But to have like a good half a dozen games that were all written in assembly, commercial quality, arcade style games that he did all himself is pretty impressive, So it's kind of interesting, just him and I just going down that memory lane talking about those games. So I think that would be great to capture that and be able to preserve that.
Actually, if you've talked to him about that before, I'd love to make sure that you're on for that interview because you probably know some questions to ask him from your discussion that I wouldn't know to ask.
Well, I don't know. It depends if you guys will let me on or not. You keep changing the Discord password to keep me out during the Zoom password. So yeah,
I thought it was just you never showed up as usual. So.
So yeah, no, it'll be great. I mean, he's another one of the jewels and gems of our community. He's done so many cool things, Cool stuff. Good show, everybody, and definitely the cherry on the cake or whatever you want to call it. Cherry on top was having David Ladd join us here at the end of the show, and oh my. So I guess we will run the outro, and then we'll come back for any parting thoughts after this. Just a scant 3-hour show today.
This concludes another episode of CoCoTALK.
Am I sharing audio?
Leading live talk show featuring the Tandy Color Computer, MC10, and Dragon systems. For all things CoCoTALK, visit us on the web at CoCoTalk.live. We'd love to hear from you. Send feedback, suggestions, even segments via email to CoCoTalk at CoCoTalk.live. consider supporting the show with a purchase of merchandise from our retro swag shop at 8bit256.com. If you'd like to become a patron of the show, click on the Patreon link on our website, CoCoTalk.live. CoCoTalk would not exist without the community, its cast, crew, and contributors. Thanks go to Alan Murphy, Amigos Retro Gaming, Bill Noble, Brian Joyce, Brian Weaver, Curtis Boyle, D. Bruce Moore, Danny O'Connor, David Ladd, Eric Canales, George Jansen, Grant Leedy, James Diffendapper, Jason Reichert, Jim Brain, Ken Reichert, Ken Waters, Mark Bosley, Mark Overholzer, Mikey Furman, Mr. Dave 6309, Nick Marentes, Nick Marotta, Nick Marotta, Nick Marotta, Paul Fiscarelli, Richard Lorbieski, Rick Adams, Rick Hewlin, Rob Inman, Ron Delvaux, Samuel Gimes, Sloopy Malibu, Steve Bjork, Terry Steggy, Tom C., and many, many more. Please help support the CoCo community. A list of various contributors and resources are available at imacoconut.com. That's IMACOCONUT.com. The original CoCoTalk theme song is copyright 2008 by D. Bruce Moore and Greg Sheeler. The new CoCoTalk theme song is copyright 2020 by D. Bruce Moore. Both are mixed, mastered, and produced by D. Bruce Moore. CoCo forever!
Yep. It's called stylized.
Oh yeah, and my microphone was muted from before. Oh yeah, so I'll just repeat that, right? So for those of you watching, did not hear anything I just said. That was dress rehearsal. Yeah, so that outro is a slideshow of pictures taken from many years of CoCo Fests and VCF, and so we're definitely trying to make sure people want to come to CoCo Fest this year. And I was just mentioning that this show started as being inspired by CoCo Fest. We were mentioning that we're in our 6th year now, this show. And this show was really celebrating our anticipation of the upcoming CoCo Fest back in what year was that? 2017? I don't remember. March 2017.
March 19th.
March 19th, 2017. So we were just kind of filibustering and talking about, isn't it going to be great? What's CoCo Fest going to be like this year, right? And so this show started in celebration of CoCo Fest. And CoCo Fest is a thing where people get together in person to celebrate the CoCo and the CoCo community. And so CoCo Fest is going on 31 years now, where people get together in person to celebrate the hobby and the community and the computer. And it's a lot of fun. It's a great vacation. It's a great way to geek out in person. That's how I've met most of you in person, if I've met you in person, and some of you I still haven't met. But yeah, so CoCo Fest is the single best thing you can do. If you're a fan of the CoCo and you're a fan of the CoCo community, CoCo Fest is like that geek weekend, right? And it's coming up this year. And we did talk about the schedule and the speakers. It's on a Friday and a Saturday. If you're coming to CoCo Fest, try to get in early and stay late. Plan on flying in on a Friday and plan on flying home on a Monday if you're flying or you're driving. Make those plans, because we do stuff up until the very last minute, right? So there's always hanging out in the lobby afterwards. There's dinners. When CoCo Fest ends on a Sunday and they kick us out by like 5, 6 o'clock from the exhibit room, then we go to a dinner somewhere again. So there's a lot of hanging out. There's a lot of socializing. There's a lot of the in-person touchy-feely, just good vibes and hanging out with fellow CoCo geeks, right?
Monday morning breakfast.
Monday morning breakfast. So yeah, so this show started in celebration of CoCo Fest, and so I'm hoping that we are the second best thing to CoCo Fest, right? The single best thing you can do as a fan of the CoCo is to hang out with people in person at a CoCo Fest. Hopefully the second best thing is this show. Hopefully we're capturing that spirit of what it's like to love that machine and the community and the people who still use and support that system. So I hope we are carrying that torch that Glenside started doing 30 years ago. Keeping that flame alive, as D. Bruce Moore says in our intro, right? Keeping the tender flame alive, right? So that's all I have to say about that. So get your ass to CoCo Fest this year, May 14th and 15th. Go to glensideccc.com for information on how to reserve a table, reserve a room, all that good stuff. And hopefully we will see you at CoCo Fest this year. Thanks for being here, guys. Any parting thoughts on the show today? Parting thoughts, final words.
Be good to everybody.
Be good. God bless us, everyone. Tiny Tim.
And we finally got back over 3 hours because people were complaining so much last week that we were so short. So.
Oh yeah. Right. So thank you, Mark Bosley. Any final thoughts from you, Mark Bosley?
No.
Was last year your first in-person CoCo Fest?
Yes, it was.
Yeah, that was cool. Rick Yu, was that your first? That's the first time I met Rick Yu was last year. Was that your first CoCo Fest or first time in a long time?
First time in a long time.
Yeah, Mark.
We've jammed together at previous CoCo Fest, so
okay,
back
excellent.
in the 90s.
And Ken, you're going to be there this year, assuming they will still let Canadians cross the border. Don't have any last-minute Parliament changes or anything like that, so that'd be good. Ron Delvaux, you going to make it this year? You're muted, but I heard the rattling of your head when you shook your head there. And by the way, WeFax. You're still muted. And there you go. Now you're unmuted. Take a drink, Ron. WeFax. Okay. So yeah, so CoCo Fest is a weekend of just getting together and geeking out, right? Seeing exhibits, seeing projects, hearing people talk, having food, having drinks, hanging out, geeking out. Like I was mentioning with Terry Steen, I just sat there and he just talked about his games and we played his games together, and it was just really cool, you know. Got to see Rick's networking stuff all set up. Got to feel the clicky keys on his keyboard, you know. So we got to see John Strong's prototype 3D printed CoCo case, you know. So all the things that are happening. We got to see Brendan Donaghy's riser for the MC10, so you could put the CoCo VGA in the MC10. So there was a lot of things to see there last year, even though it was only like a 3/4 attendance because of CoCo Fest or COVID, right? It was still a great event this year, hopefully even bigger, even better. Please come. That's all I have to say. Anybody else want to say anything, or we're just going to say goodbye, everybody?
OG Hogu has a question in the chat. He said, is it possible to move the next CoCo Fest to California? I would say probably not because it's sponsored by Glenside, but there is a VCF.
There's a VCF West, right?
Yep.
There's VCF West, and a lot of CoCo folks on the West Coast do go there. We did provide really good coverage one year. So VCF, the VCF things are the second best thing to CoCo Fest. It's like a multi-fest.
Mark, do you know when the next one is?
Tuesday, first weekend in August.
Yeah, just go to VCF.org or something is the main parent site
VCF,
for that.
VCFed.
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 Okay.
.org. Yep.
So yeah. So hopefully we'll have a really good turnout at CoCo Fest this year and all that good stuff. So thanks guys for another great week, another great show. I'm going to say goodbye, everybody. Anybody else have anything to say?
See you next week.